I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. All right. All right, as usual, we have a set agenda, but since we have guests, we're going to move them up first. We appreciate all of your time and coming in and talking with us. We very much appreciate it. I think the order that we're going to go in this evening, we'll take Sharon Rice first, Jennifer Carlino second, Chris third, and Keith, since you're here already, we'll take him last. Sharon, if you don't mind grabbing a seat next to Mr. Heaney.
Hello.
Hi.
Again, thank you. Appreciate your time, energy. We know this is probably not where you wanted to be on a Monday night, but we do very much appreciate it. Sharon is the Parks and Recreation Director. If you don't mind, we'll start very easy. If you can just give us a little bit of an explanation about your role and any staff that you have.
Okay, well, that's pretty easy.
Yes.
Since I don't have one. I work 25 hours a week, and I am the entire department. So I rely heavily on highway and a few other departments to help me out as needed, and volunteers from the town, like Boy Scouts and just different people that can bring services to help weed and cut grass and do all kinds of stuff like that. So that's primarily it. It's 25 hours a week that I work. It's probably a 60 hours to do the job well. You need about 60 hours of staffing. And when, you get into critical times like Founder's Day and things like that, it's just escalates. It's been a crazy summer between the pool and Founder's Day and
What are
summer programs.
What are your major responsibilities?
Major responsibilities. Certainly Founder's Day in the pool. Primarily, so I'm working on expanding the number of events that we do. We've been doing, I've been in the role for 6 months, so I should say that. There's kind of set events that are done, Halloween parade, Founder's Day, there's an egg hunt, spring dance. So I've been keeping those going, but working to enhance those, and just trying to bring more people into the Parks and Rec family, provide services for different age groups, looking at some for adults, trying to form a committee of teens to try to bring some events for them and services, and just foster a sense of community, which I think we desperately need here.
And you currently have a board or a commission, and how many?
do.
You have 7 folks. Is it fully staffed?
Yes, right now I have a commission of 7 with 2 alternates, and they're all seats are taken.
And what's the responsibility of the board in relation to your department?
Well, it functions a little differently than some of the other boards, like I'm going to use Dave as an example, the zoning and planning. Those boards kind of set policy, and they enforce policy, and they make decisions on, how things should operate. My board is different because they are my support staff, and for lack of a better word, we don't make a whole lot of decisions. We do some, but, they set fees on park rentals and things like that. We just voted in a new chair. They'll do that kind of thing. But they help me staff events, which is critical because I can't clone myself. So the meeting is just like a real small part of what I need them to do given my staffing situation. So it's a little bit different than traditional boards here.
Are you happy with the way that they're appointed?
The way they were appointed?
Yes.
No. So right now, how it works is that if someone's interested, assuming there's a seat, if someone's interested, they send a letter to the selectman's office, and if there's a seat, they're given it. I'm not in the loop. And they're not, as far as I know, I shouldn't say this because I really don't know how the selectmen do it, but I don't know that they're screened either. And as someone who relies heavily on a board to do different things, it's important that, I think, that they have the right mindset. If they're coming in and they're looking to set policy, then they belong on a different board, because I need people who will give up their nights and their weekends and really get in the thick of it, hands-on kind of thing.
Would you like to be involved in that? When,
I would, yes,
so
absolutely.
do you have a problem with them actually, the way they're selected, for instance, they're sending a letter? Would you be okay with them sending a letter of interest and then say you being a part of the selection committee, say with the selectmen, so that you at least have some type of idea of who's going to be on the board?
Absolutely. Or even if, I know the selectmen have a lot of things to do, but if the applications came to me and I could pre-select and send them 3, or, I haven't had many open seats since I've taken over, so we haven't recruited in a big way, so if there were an empty seat and we were just putting it out to the public and there were more than one applicant, I'd like to see that. That'd be great.
All right, so the Board of Selectmen typically, when they'll get a letter, they vote on it at town meeting, and they've been trying to move towards doing, just a quick preliminary interview, and it sounds like if you were possibly involved in that process, that might be better in terms of
Yeah, I think so.
vetting the correct person.
I just think they need to know up front what I expect of them, and what the job really entails.
Okay.
Because it's not always evident.
Okay. And you report directly to Mike Units?
I do.
Okay. Are you happy with the level of autonomy that you have with your job right now?
I do. I am limited only by my resources.
Understanding that your board's not a traditional board in terms of policy setting, we'll kind of avoid the question of checks and balances between the
Right.
board. It sounds like they more take direction from your marching orders.
Yeah, well, it's just what's on the plate.
What needs to get done.
The agenda is, there's a lot of things that were in place before I came on board, and we just keep it going.
Okay. Do you have everything that you need in terms of information technology? We've already discussed people to some extent that you need to do your job properly.
No. If I had a wish list, certainly I could use better technology. I do a lot of flyer creation, design stuff. Just trying to make a PDF, which sounds so simple, is really difficult if you don't have the right software. So certainly I would benefit. I would love to have a printer that prints more than 1 page a minute. Can I make do? Yes,
Yeah.
I do, but
Okay. And what were you doing previously to this position?
I've been self-employed as a marketer for, I don't know, probably 15 years. But before that, I worked in corporate and then spent a lot of time in nonprofit world that functioned like a corporation, like Harvard Business School and Bridgewater State College. So,
Okay. Any prior experience with Parks and Recs in other towns?
no, I've done a lot of events that's part of the marketing stuff,
Okay.
but not as I've never worked for a municipality before. Although I could tell you that the other Parks and Recs directors are good friends now because they're a great resource for me. How do you do this, and what do you do about that?
Do you meet on a regular basis?
No, but I call them,
Okay.
yeah.
Do you live in Norton?
I do.
You do, okay. Have you ever talked to anybody in other towns where you think with their town's department is functioning differently or structured differently that we should look at?
Well, it's funny, I made some calls today. So I called Easton and Mansfield and Foxborough. And they all have a full-time director and varying degrees of support staff. So they all at least have one part-time assistant who was 19 hours, I think, and some have 2 full-time assistants. But the assistants are paid either partially or fully out of the revolving account rather than through the town. Which is the director's paid from the town, but So that I thought was interesting, because you obviously have to raise money to pay those salaries. And with some extra manpower, I mean, Parks and Rec could actually be a profit center. Not that I like doing some things for free for the town, for town residents, but it's a way to bring money in.
Okay.
So you're saying about like revolving, events and whatnot, taking fees and being able to support your support staff with those type of fees and
Right,
different events that you have.
exactly.
So it's kind of self-autonomous instead of
Exactly.
having to go through the town budget for the money for the assistance.
Right,
But really, the only way to do that is to get more assistance first. So
Right.
you can run more events.
yeah, exactly. So it's kind of a catch-22. And I don't know where I did ask about the benefits, because it's not so much the salary, it's where do the benefits come in. But if you had an 18-hour person, I'm sure the revolving account could handle something like that. But
All right. We're going to get into a few questions about the way Norton's town government is structured. And if you could try and just think about your role as the Parks and Rec director and less as a resident or constituent, and I understand that's hard, but try to keep those
Sure.
opinions separate. What do you like about Norton's town government?
okay, so this is confession time. I've lived in this town for 22 years, and until about 6 months ago, I've been pretty much oblivious to how things function. But since coming here, I have to say, what I see around me is a bunch of hardworking people that are just understaffed. I mean, that's my general opinion. I think it works as best it can, given what we have.
Do you have any particular feelings about town meeting and the way that the legislative body is established within this town?
Really don't feel like I'm qualified to even offer an opinion on that.
No, that's okay. It's fair enough.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Is there anything you don't like about Norton's town government specifically? And again, just thinking about your role within it.
Well, I think there's certain services that we really need. I mean, one thing we're sorely in need of is a communications department. We do a lot of good stuff, but we don't have the time to tell anybody about it. So I think that's really important, and we touched upon IT. I mean, having an IT department 2 days a week is really tough sometimes. If you have a problem on a Wednesday, and they're not here till Thursday, those kinds of things.
Are there any other changes to town government you might like to see that you can think of?
No, I really don't think so.
Is there anything that you wanted to discuss that we didn't specifically ask you?
Well, I know you don't really handle budget stuff, but I mean, I do feel like we're way behind on the Parks and Rec front than the towns near us, just on the services we offer and the programs that are provided. So, and the facilities that we have. You know, all the towns have rec centers with ball fields, and some have splash pads and all these things. So we're just kind of, tennis courts, we have one tennis court, public town tennis court. No pickleball courts. So,
That actually was a recommendation when they were doing the community center. I thought,
yeah. There's big demand for it.
There is.
And I got a price on our one lonely tennis court that's in the middle of a condo complex, and it was about $6,000 to refinish it and put pickleball lines on it. So, not this year.
Anything else that you would like to bring up or discuss with us?
No, I think that's about it.
Okay, that's
Right.
it.
That
I
was,
told you it would be painless.
thank you so much.
I appreciate your time.
It was helpful.
All right, thank you, it was. Have a good evening.
Hi, Peter.
All right. Jen, you're up.
Hi.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. Again, thank you for coming.
It was all for me.
Share. Unless you want to read them all. All the same thing. Thank you.
What'd you bring us?
Oh, just the answers to some of the questions that you sent her.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. Jen, all right, well, I feel badly, I'm gonna make you talk.
Oh, no,
because
yeah.
You've written it all out
It's
for us.
just, it's easier if
Thank
I
you.
hand that out to you than if you try to write it all down now.
For reference, it's very helpful, thank you, we do appreciate that. If you can tell us, brief explanation of your role, how long have you been in this position, staff, if any?
Sure. I'm the Conservation Director, and I've been here for 20 years. So my main job is to enforce and administer Wetland Protection Act and environmental regulations. I do all the site inspections and all the staff work for the Conservation Commission. So I do the permit review, I do all the site inspections, make sure the wetland boundaries are correct, try to anticipate any issues with building, any type of project. Not just building, it's any activity within 100 feet of a wetland or 200 feet of a river requires a permit from the Conservation Commission. So I write all the draft all the permits for the commission, do all of the project monitoring, and just generally make sure all the projects go according to their permits and to regulation. We also own quite a bit of conservation property, and so I manage and acquire conservation property. It's not just wetland or floodplain property. We're also looking for all different types of habitats in all different sections of town to try to make it equal, little environmental justice. So everybody has an area where they can go and walk and do nature study or another big portion of that is trying to make sure that wildlife corridors are connected and animals can get, through town without too much problem. The Conservation Commission and my office would be the environmental experts for people, so if they had any environmental questions, they can certainly contact the Conservation Office. I'm the FEMA Floodplain Community Rating Service Program Coordinator, so we do floodplain education and evaluations of flood determinations for people's property for free, and with the annual documentation that gives people a 5% discount on their flood insurance. I do a lot of grant writing, so probably 1.8 million I think I'm up to.
And that's in your tenure?
Yeah. We just did the municipal vulnerability preparedness training last year, so most department heads and some members of the community did a training on how to prepare for climate change adaptation and mitigation. So we looked at a lot of flooding issues, changes in extreme climate, and how to prepare for that. We manage 2 of the dams in town. Chartley Pond Dam and Norton Reservoir Dam are owned by the Conservation Commission, so I've got to write annual emergency action plans. Those goes to the state for approval. We also have to manage the dam, so I work with an engineering company to make sure that the dams are working properly and the constant maintenance that we have to do on those. And I will be administering the stormwater bylaw that was passed a couple years ago. Staffing is part-time. About 2008, I think, my full-time secretary was brought down to part-time, and that has not been reinstated yet. We asked in the spring. The office is certainly busy enough that we do need the full-time staff. More than 40% of Norton's surface area is wetland, and so pretty much throw a stick and you need a wetland permit for something. So additional staffing would be helpful.
Are you happy with the way the commission is appointed?
The commission?
Yes.
Yeah, we're We're kept in the loop pretty well on that. People, if they're interested, they do contact us, and we suggest that they come to a meeting just to hear what's happening. They will send a letter to the selectmen. The vast majority of the time, we are copied on that. Every now and then, people forget, but we are part of the process, so, yeah, that's fine.
To whom do you directly report?
Right now, it is to the town manager.
Okay.
The last time the charter was changed to be the town manager, before that, it was through the Conservation Commission.
Do you have a preference?
The the Conservation Commission Act was written specifically so that the staffing would be hired and appointed by the Conservation Commission. And the reason for that is to try to avoid any political pressure for something that's a regulatory and a more scientific approach.
So it was changed to go from that to being appointed by the town manager?
Correct. Yeah.
And you would like it reverted?
Well, I made a comment at the time that I didn't think it was appropriate, but the vast majority of the departments were then moved under the town manager's office. So
Okay.
it hasn't been a problem. We've been pretty fortunate. The last two town managers actually knew what my job was. Before that, 2 or 3 town managers really didn't have any idea, and there would have been more, and there had been more political pressure to approve things that wouldn't meet regulations
Okay.
and requirements. But that hasn't been an issue.
Can I just clarify something? Maybe I missed it, but are you saying that the way it's structured now doesn't comply with the?
No, you're able to do that. And town council was
Involved.
town council was involved the last time.
Okay, all right, so we are in compliance, all right.
Yeah, you're not in any
Okay.
violation.
Okay.
It should be more of a concern if you had a town manager that didn't understand the functions of your job. You know,
Correct.
Down the road, for instance, if we had.
Correct, but for the last 20 years, I usually work very closely with the town manager, and I keep them up to date on all of the projects going on. So if there is an issue, they know that they either, have a heads up on it, or they can come and talk to me, so
Are you comfortable with the level of autonomy in your job?
yes, yeah. It should be, the department should be autonomous, like I said, to avoid any of that political involvement. Conservation and Board of Health they're also considered public health and safety. Most people wouldn't recognize wetlands as health and safety, but keeps the drinking water clean, prevents flooding and storm damage, so it is sort of in that umbrella.
Are you comfortable with the way your role works with the commission?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a fantastic commission. They're always prepared. They're very reasonable. They do the work they're supposed to be doing.
Okay.
Yeah, they're great.
Thinking about, I know we talked about staffing already, but in terms of information and technology, do you have everything that you need to do your job to the best of your abilities?
Aside from staffing?
Yes.
Aside from staffing.
Sorry.
I don't know if this goes into one of your future questions, but
It's okay, we can skip around if it does.
wetland regulation is always changing. It's constant updates and constant improvements and scientific information and how you review projects, how you do permitting. One of the things that we don't have in town is an engineer or hydrology on staff. So we do a lot of peer reviews our reviews of any type of project are getting more and more technical. The vast majority of it, yes, I can handle, but if it's an engineering or a hydrology review, we do have to go outside for a peer review to work for the town for that.
Okay. In your opinion, if we were to have one on staff, would that be more economical than outsourcing that to a third party?
Right now, most of the outsourcing is paid by the applicant.
Ah.
So, the applicant is paying for
Got
the
it.
Conservation Commission. But they're also planning board, zoning board, if Board of Health needs a consultant, all of that is covered under Chapter 44, Section 53G, which allows the commission to, or any of the boards, to require the technical assistance that they may not have in town.
Okay.
I mean, piled together, cumulatively, it may be less money for applicants if there were town staffing for engineering. I know that would also help Highway Department with culverts and any projects that they're looking to do, water and sewer would also benefit from that.
Is it like a time thing? Like, for instance, when you have to send those out for peer reviews, is that just because it takes more time for them to get the results back than it would be if you had somebody on staffing that was able to review them as they came in?
It may be faster. I really wouldn't know because it's all depends on somebody's schedule. The peer reviewer that we typically use on the Conservation Commission is he's the principal engineer of his own company. So he does all his own work, so it's just depending on his schedule and how many other towns or how many other projects he's working on.
Have you seen any trends in your industry that you see potentially impacting your role and/or department or commission going forward?
It's mostly just the peer review and the need for the engineering and the hydrology. I'm actually president of one of the statewide organizations for conservation commissions or conservation agents, and we have monthly brown bag lunches. We have a guest speaker. We move all around the state so everyone can participate. It's a big networking opportunity for us. We can hear what other towns are doing for their projects. If anybody had a similar project, how they handle some of their reviews and how they interpret the regulation.
Okay.
I mean, the land is getting more and more marginal, so there's certainly more work, wetland permitting that needs to be done.
Going back to
There's
your,
probably a need for setting up some sort of training for contractors. Just how to make sure that their erosion and sediment control is being done properly and how to monitor that. If we had time and staffing, that's something that we could take on.
going back to your comment about the association, have you come across any towns where the department or the function is structured differently that you think we might want to look at?
Every town is different.
Anything that you've seen that you might like? Are you comfortable with the way it's structured here? Does it meet our needs?
The autonomy here is probably the most important thing. It's also important for people to understand that my position is not a desk position. So out in the field, or could be out in the field half the week, in and out of the office, and I'm not always there to answer the phone or to answer an email, just because I have to do the inspections.
Yep. Are you a Norton resident?
I'm sorry?
Are you a Norton resident?
No.
Okay. Thinking about, this will be easier then, your position, what do you like about Norton's town government?
I like that everybody has the opportunity to participate, right? Everybody has their own voice. They can attend, public hearings, they can attend town meeting, they can be part of a board. If they don't want to be on a board, they can volunteer some way. I have a number of people who wanted to do open space work, but they didn't want to come to a meeting. So we made our meetings, well, we're just going to go out and do trail work on a Thursday night. There's a lot of opportunity for people to be involved, and everyone's busy, and it's hard to get the word out sometimes, but I think the open form of town government is appropriate for a town this size.
Yes, Peter, did you have a question?
Nope, just put my hand up.
Okay. Is there anything that you don't like about Norton's town government?
Actually, I'm going to go back to what I like.
Okay.
A couple more things.
Sure, go ahead.
We work with a lot of great people and a lot of great different organizations, and I've always found that people will really pull together to try to get a project done with either volunteers or donations, and I think that's important to point out, even with all the, there's a lot of negative things as well, but everybody really does try to find a way to get a project done. I think that's important. What we don't like, not adequate staffing in town, and I don't just mean in my department, but we really do need full-time IT in town hall. We really would significantly benefit from a human resource person. There are a number of places where, we don't have these more professional staff, and so each department has to kind of figure out all their own stuff. If you have a project, we all now have to become experts in uniform procurement and writing a bid and how you go through the bid process. That really could be funneled down into a more appropriate area. Some of the accounting stuff that we need to do could be simplified or taken on by other entities, like the website. I just don't have time to figure out how to update our page on the website. We just don't have the staffing for the things that would improve how we do things.
Okay.
There have been some really good strides with online permitting and trying to reduce the amount of paper and how to do online payments. Those are all really important steps that the town is making. It's a little challenging to get information out to people now. Not everybody's on social media and nobody reads the newspaper anymore. So trying to find a more centralized area for town departments to put their information, to get that out to a number of people, I think is probably important, instead of everybody having their own page. If it were really more centralized, then everyone would know where to look for the information and get notification on things. I mentioned a little bit of negativity. We're just, town departments are being pitted against each other for projects and staffing and funding. And like Sharon said, the building is full of people who are really working hard and trying to do the best they can with very little resources. So. Inadequate space for storage, file storage, trying to have a meeting. I don't know if you guys have ever had a meeting when there's a meeting upstairs.
Yes.
You can't hear anything, we can't hear anything, but what's happening down here, trying to have a consultation with anyone in an open area like we have upstairs is really difficult.
Any changes that you'd like to see?
Some improved communication around town meeting and budget time would be really helpful. we don't always, as department heads, get notification that the warrant is ready, or that FinCom has made the recommendations, and it seems like a relatively easy fix to do that. We're all expected to be at town meeting, but sometimes we don't know until a couple days before that, you know, the warrant's been posted, or we really need to prepare something for town meeting, so. Or other times, we don't even know that our budget is going to be discussed at FinCom. You know, those things could really be communicated a little bit better. And just continue the simplification of processes, including paper and, you know, how we sign bills, and there's a whole host of ways we can improve things, a little bit of waste on postage and mailing things, minor things that we could really improve on.
Is there anything else that you'd like to discuss with us we didn't ask about?
I don't think so. I hope I
Okay.
got all of your questions. And
Anybody else have any questions?
okay.
Thank you very much for your
Thank
time.
you.
We appreciate it.
Thanks
Okay, next up, Mr. Carmichael.
Good evening.
How are you this evening?
How's everybody doing?
We're great. Thanks to you again for coming in. This is Chris Carmichael, building inspector, and let's see,
The Building Commissioner, Zoning Enforcement Officer, ADA Coordinator.
just a few things. And you've been in the role how long?
16 months.
Okay.
All of those, are those, all those different roles?
It's
those
all one title,
thing?
yeah.
Got
It's,
it.
well, building is separate with inspections, and then zoning is, so building are life safety issues, or life safety codes. Zoning is quality of life
Yeah,
codes, those are local. And then ADA Coordinator is 521 CMR, I administer that as well.
okay.
Do you head up the inspections department, the plumbing, the wiring, and the gas?
I
all
am
of
the head
those?
of the department, so I have 2 electrical inspectors, 2 plumbing inspectors, and I've tried to integrate more of the alternates more recently, and it seems to be working better. I also have just brought on a local inspector, part-time, a couple days a week. That's going to take off a lot off my shoulders. So the administration has been extremely easy to work with in giving me the staffing levels and whatever I needed.
Okay.
I also have a full-time clerk, administrative assistant, and with the new online permitting, I've redirected her to take care of just the scheduling for the mechanical, so the MEPs, the electrical, plumbing, so she coordinates all of that,
Okay.
processes those permits, and then schedules those gentlemen, because they're only part-time. I've increased their hours, I've made them more accessible, and then I think it's worked. So, I've also got them a raise. They hadn't had a raise in 20 years prior to my arrival, so I pushed for that and got them a raise, much needed. So they were some of the lowest paid in the state. In the past year, I've also brought 3 departments online for permanent, myself, health, and fire, and that's eased a lot of the paper and the shuffling and the walking it 10 feet down the hall and waiting 2 weeks for an answer and then coming back and doing the same thing. We do concurrent review now. I send out a digital plan online. Everybody reviews it concurrently. It gets back to me instantly. I've heard very few complaints. So
How much time on average would you think that would save the
we save
general person?
hundreds of hours, literally. Something that would take me an hour to process takes me 2 minutes to process now.
Okay.
So
And I'm assuming it's
saving-
quicker.
That's why I've redirected the admin to just do the MEPs and to hit on those.
Okay. And what about for the residents? I'm assuming that's saving some time for them as well in terms of the length of time it takes to get the permit?
Absolutely. We're turning roofing and siding permits over within hours, as soon as I get a check from the treasurer's office. something that would take a week that now takes an hour. But longer building permits, like a residential house, might take 2 weeks, where it would take 2 months before. So we've gone progressive, and I've had a lot of support from the admin to do this. We're looking to advance that next year as well. We're looking to bring planning, conservation, Board of Selectmen, and the town clerk's office online as well. So I'm going to be writing a warrant and going before the town this fall for that.
Can I ask what might be a dumb question?
No
So-
questions are dumb.
So we heard both tonight and in previous nights, a lot of challenges around resourcing, a lot of challenges around technology and other things. And I just heard pretty much the exact opposite from you. So
It's because I came in, and I was brought in because I had experience with online permitting, and I knew the technology, I knew the needs. So I wrote a warrant that included the hardware and the software for 3 departments, so for building, health, and fire.
Yeah.
So hopefully you haven't heard any complaints about technology from those 3.
honestly, I don't remember offhand.
Not to put you on the spot.
You're supposed to be the one on the spot right now.
No, I'm comfortable where I am, so, like I said, I've gotten a lot of support.
So when you say you went to town meeting?
Yes,
for
last
the
fall.
funding, okay.
Yep, and we received a grant, $102,000, that was for all the computers for those 3 departments. And then got larger monitors so we can read the plans online. I'm gonna expand upon that this year. So hopefully, some of the problems that you've been hearing about the technology, I'll be addressing very shortly. Hopefully.
Okay.
With the town's approval.
And you report directly to Mike Units?
Mr. Units is my appointing authority, town manager.
Okay. And the inspection department, your staff reports to you?
That's correct.
Okay. And you're happy with that?
Yes, that's how it's written in 143.3, and that's how we follow it,
Yep.
strictly by the law.
All right. Are you happy with the level of autonomy that you have in your current role?
Absolutely. Mr. Units provides a laissez-faire style of administration. It's perfect. He lets us do our job. And like I've said before, he's given me nothing but support. I've received the same amount of support from the town. I can't be happier.
All right. And you work with, and I know you mentioned zoning, but you don't have specifically a board or commission that you work
I don't
with?
work through a board, that's not how it works, but I
Okay.
do work a lot closer with the zoning board of appeals. They appeal a lot of my decisions to that board directly. I also attend a lot of planning boards and provide technical assistance.
Good.
I will comment on the size of the zoning board. I think this town could use something a lot larger. I think you need a couple more full-time members. I would suggest you go to 5 members and 2 alternates, so 7 members on that board. You'd get a better cross-section of the community, you'd have more people. And then if one member misses it, you're only having 2 people on a board, which is it's kind of tough.
What do we
I'm
have?
not saying anything negative about them, I'm just saying I would increase the membership.
Okay. What do we have presently for?
You have 3-member board.
Okay. Nope, that's useful, thank you. We've touched a little bit about information technology people. It sounds like you brought in a lot of it. Do you have everything you need to do your job to the best of your ability right now?
I do. I'm going to be looking to go with some tablets for field inspections, and I hope to address that in the fall warrant.
So when you have tablets, you can do like instant sign-offs pretty much that.
Yeah, I mean,
All the way.
Yeah, so we, to the second updated, so if I know that the plumbing and the electrical inspector have been out there, I can get out right away. And then same thing with fire. Since we're not so close, we're not in the same departments, I know exactly when they've been there, and I can go out and then do a final sign-off. So it's very useful, very useful. I can pull up a set of blueprints that they submitted, and I can see that they've hit their benchmarks, and they've hit my red marks as well.
So if you had those tablets, you could do like instant sign-offs on like
Absolutely, yeah.
occupancy and all that stuff. If you had all those checked off and.
If I do, I'd still like to come back and review it, and dot all my i's, cross my t's. So, but yes, it's possible.
It would streamline a lot for everybody, including the people that are looking for the permits, but the people that are the contractors, you're saving a lot of time on their end.
It's, like I said, I've heard nothing but complaints. You're always gonna get a few negative people that don't wanna be on the computer, on computer savvy. So we have the kiosk right on the counter so we can talk them off the ledge. There it is. And we try to make it as easy as possible. I think we've, in the 16 months that I've been here, this department was flagged by 2 state agencies before my arrival, and there was a constant turnover. There was a lot of problems. I think we've addressed a lot of them, and we've turned it around. So we're heading in the right direction.
Have you noted any trends or changes in regulations in your industry that you potentially see impacting your role and your department going forward?
We addressed the stretch code this past year. We brought the town up to the current standards where the rest of the community, 80% of the towns in the municipality, within the state have gone to that. So we do have a little stricter regulations for energy code now. But like I said, it's the trend. So we are seeing that we're keeping up to the times. We're actually a little bit behind. 80% of the state was on board before we got on board. Now it allows us to get grant money and become a green community. So we're doing our part. But my department goes with the economy. So when the economy is good, building is booming, as it is right now. So we're thriving. We're very busy right now. So we're trying to keep up, and that's why I've increased my staffing levels to accommodate it and keep up. With the Blue Star coming in, I'm going to be running even more plan reviews, more inspections. So that'll allow me to focus on the commercial, and I'll have the new local inspector focusing on the residential aspect.
Do you live in the town of Norton?
I do not.
Where were you prior to coming to Norton?
I've been with several towns.
Okay.
I was also in business for 27 years. I was a call captain in my hometown also on the fire department. So I've worked with numerous municipalities, cities, towns. So it's not the form of government, it's the people you have running it that I see most effective. And again, I can stress that Mr. Units and his type of administration is A+. Couldn't get any better.
Have you worked with or for any other, come across any towns where your department functions are structured a little bit differently, something we may want to look at?
I kind of have. In the past year and a half, I've kind of taken what I've liked and left what I didn't from the other departments that I've worked with. And I've streamlined things, and I think I have it headed in the right direction. So, but there's always room for improvement. So if you see something you don't like, please let me know.
All right, thinking about your position and as it relates to Norton Town government, what do you like about Norton Town government?
As previously stated, I think we have some excellent people. We have some excellent staff here on the municipal side. People that are very easy to work with. Other towns fight, bicker between departments a lot more so than here within the town hall. I think we have an excellent staff. We could increase some staffing levels. I do see a need for a great need for a town engineer, especially with the completion of the wastewater and the new water treatment facility. You can see where they're putting the water and sewer on the town roads. It's immediately increasing the property values. We need to coordinate that into a master plan and get everybody heading into that right direction. So the need for an engineer is great at this time. I think that's the town's greatest need right now. Then I would follow up with an HR person. Mike has an open door policy, so a lot of the problems creep into his office and prevent him from doing his job. So I would say engineer, HR, and then go to IT. Those are our needs in that order.
And what do you don't like about Norton's town government?
No comment. I have no problems, I should say.
All right. Are there any changes in town government that you'd like to see? I know you mentioned the ZBA increasing that panel to 5 members. Anything similar in nature?
I think the biggest thing we need to focus on is getting out of this auditorium, and so we can have private conversations. I think curb appeal and enticing contractors to come in here and big developers. I can't have a conversation in my office without someone else being on the phone. There is no private conversations. There is echoing. It is a major problem, the size of this, whole town hall. So I hope we're looking at that, seriously.
Is there anything else we didn't ask you about that you'd like to discuss tonight?
I hope not.
Okay.
Can I ask just one
Yes,
follow-up
please.
question about the engineer? Would an engineer benefit your department specifically?
Absolutely, because it's always better to bounce things off of several people's heads, and if you have an engineer on staff, I think Keith would benefit, I think we all would benefit from having an engineer. I don't want to speak for Keith, I apologize if I spoke out of turn, but again, it's the greatest need that the town is increasing in size to coordinate the water and sewer, and then the increasing property values, and then to redevelop it. So it's all going to be coordinated through planning, the engineer, and we all need to be on the same page. And if we're not, then it's going to be a mismatch and some problems that we've already seen. So that's a high priority.
Any other questions for Mr. Carmichael?
No, actually, thank you, Mike, for everything you did there. I just want to clarify on the zoning board, there is 5 members on the board.
There's 2 alternates. I'm saying going 5 full and then 2 alternates, so 7.
Right.
So they just increased that, yeah.
Right. I'm not disagreeing, I'm just saying that, I just want to clarify.
No, I work in a small town, I'm on a ZBA, and we have 7 members, so you get a better cross-section and more people, so it just seems to work better.
That's fair. Any other suggestions of that nature?
Nope?
Okay. Anybody else? Thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it.
Have a good night.
You as well. All right.
Sitting in the hot seat?
Okay, up next is Keith Silver. He is the highway superintendent. In the spirit of full disclosure, I'm just going to announce that Keith is not only the highway superintendent, but is also a member of the Charter Commission. His responses this evening should reflect those only of his role in the capacity of highway superintendent and not as a member of the Charter Commission or resident.
Hey,
Hi, Keith.
how you doing?
Great. Can you tell us a little bit how long you've been in your role, main functions, staff?
I've been in the highway department for 28 years. I've been the superintendent for 20. The highway department is actually highway, tree department, and cemetery department. I have 1 foreman, 1 secretary, and 9 employees.
Are they full-time?
All full-time. I have 4 summer help too, in the summer I have 4 college kids.
Okay.
They work on the cemeteries.
Okay. Are you happy with the level of your staffing right now?
Yes, I just had 2 new hires, so it's great now, I got a full staff,
Okay. That's considered full?
yeah,
Okay. You report directly to Mr. Units?
yes,
Okay. And you're happy with the level of autonomy that you have within your role?
yes, yeah.
Okay.
Now, the selectmen, they're road commissioners, so I answer to them too. Sometimes they have questions for me, so
Okay.
it's not just Mike.
I don't think I knew that. So in terms of, so if there's a board or commission that you report to or you work with, that would be just the Board of Selectmen?
Right,
Okay. And only pertaining to roads?
right.
Okay.
Well, we have, all right, sorry. We have a cemetery commission too,
Okay.
so, yes, I gotta go to that.
So you're busy?
But the trees are part of the selectmen, so.
Okay. All right. Do you have access to everything that you need in terms of, we talked about people already, information technology, that you need to do your job properly on a daily basis?
Yeah, I'm used to what's going on, and, I mean, I don't need no fancy computer or nothing like that, but
Okay.
Maybe when I retire, the new person can have that.
Are there any trends or changes in regulations that you see impacting your department specifically, or your role in general?
Well, right now, we got the stormwater bylaws, and that's like a whole new department, because we gotta go out and we gotta check every storm drain. We gotta mow all the detention basins, we gotta repair catch basins. Just from all this rain we've been getting, and you get all these downpours, and it's washing out the side of the road, so it's a whole new maintenance program out there. And we gotta fill out a stormwater permit every year. Everything's gotta be written down. Whatever you do out there, you gotta take pictures of everything now. Everything's gonna be on file, because they'll come right down and they'll ask you questions, what you've been doing, and you gotta make sure you have that stuff for them, the DEP.
Keith, does that go through conservation?
What?
Does that go right through conservation with those type of things, the permit?
We're all in one big group. She's in it, I'm in it. The building inspector, planning board, everybody gets together for this permit, and we try to change things, but I'm the one that fills it out, and I'm the one that does most of the work out there.
And that's specifically in response to these new bylaws?
Right, yeah, this MS4 permit's been out for quite a few years now.
Okay.
Then we made a bylaw. The bylaw she's talking about,
Yep.
we just made that up. That just passed, 2018. We update it every year.
Okay. I'm going to skip that one. I know you live in Norton.
Yes.
Okay. Thinking about your position solely as highway and superintendent and not as a resident or a constituent, within that role, what do you like about Norton's town government?
Well, doing it this long, I mean, actually, I don't think it's bad. I think the government's working. But doing the budget and stuff like that, it's no problem. But I think we have problems with some of our roles here, like capital improvements. When we have capital improvements meetings, you go in there and you bring up a 5-year plan of what you're going to need in your department. And you can have it on paper, and you can explain it to them, and some people just, I'm not saying they're dumb, but they don't understand what you need. Like, say I need a truck with a plow and a sander, and I need it's $160,000, and they can't realize, well, that's a lot of money, and probably 20 years ago, or probably longer than that, they used to go to everybody's department. So if I wanted something like that, they'd have a committee, would actually go into police, fire, highway, and you show them what you need. Actually show, oh yeah, okay, now we understand. So now, when you go to the capital improvements and you get all done, and you leave, the guy on that committee say, oh yeah, I was down in the highway department and that thing is a mess, And I actually did that one year. I made them come to my department and I showed them a loader, because they kept denying me. And when they finally went and physically saw what I had down there, they said, holy, we gotta help this guy out. So, I mean, if we had a committee like that, I think that would work.
What was the committee, was it part of the capital improvements
Yeah,
committee? They just,
you had a separate committee that was working with the capital improvements, going to all the. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know why we got rid of it, or
I
where
don't
it went?
know. I don't know, I just, what, I think this, how many committees can you have, and it's hard to find people that want to do it, like they had a mechanic, it was all different people on this committee that knew their role, and it, just stopped doing it.
What don't you like about Norton's town government?
Well, looking at these other charters, but I really think that, and I like Billy Gavere, but I think we really should look at the moderator picking the finance committee. I think there should be more departments involved in that.
who do you think should be contributing?
Well, I'd say the moderator, the selectman, school. I don't know, probably someone from the treasurer's office or accountant.
Any other changes to town government that you'd like to see in that nature?
Yeah, when you do your budget and you go in front of the finance committee, I think Jen brought this up too. I don't like being on hold until the town meeting, or you can go to the town meeting, I found out they cut my budget $5,000, you know what I mean? They should at least call you or say, Keith, I want to talk to you, and say, we cut you $5,000, so at least I can fight for that $5,000, at least show them, you know, this is why I need it. You know, and the other thing I don't like about town government, and it's sad because I've been here, like I say, 29 years, and my mother was alive, my father was alive, I don't know how we can do this, but I know why we're all here. But we're split in two ways. We have the schools and we have town government. It's sad because no one can get together and make this thing work right. And that's why we're always fighting. Everybody needs this money, everybody needs that money, and it's sad. We can do all our budgeting and you get all done with it and you go to the town meeting and that budget should be done. You shouldn't have to get up and, the finance committee, the selectmen, the town manager, put this budget together. The school was here, I was here, everybody was here. And you go to a town meeting and someone has to get up because they're mad because he didn't get what he wanted or she didn't want, and it should be like that. It should be closed and let's vote on that budget. People that are there to vote on articles, that's fine. You shouldn't be opening a budget up. We spent months putting this thing together and they just fight about it, you know, and it's sad. It's just sad.
So we're voting on the budget as a whole, but the town meeting is obviously a place for discussion. How do you see that getting addressed otherwise?
I don't know how you're gonna fix it. I
Okay.
don't know. You know, but I know what I'm saying is you have the finance committee and you have the, you know, selectmen and you have the town manager and everybody brings their budget in and they have meetings, I don't know how many months, and they finally get a budget together. And that's the budget they should be working by. They shouldn't be just saying, okay, everybody's emailing now and calling on phones and doing all this stuff and they're trying to just open a can of worms up and it's done. 'Cause they shouldn't be able to just take all this money out of one department and give it to another department.
Okay, so this is discussions amongst the various departments, not necessarily people at town meeting, constituents at town meeting complaining about
Well,
money move.
it's everybody.
Okay. Okay. Any other suggestions or changes you'd like to see to town government?
Let me see what I had here. Well, the other thing would be, we're talking about, we got selectmen, we're talking about representative town meeting, and we're talking about council. I don't know what everybody's thinking. I mean, selectmen, I have no problem with the selectmen. Some people want to see councilmen.
Yep.
Talk to other towns, and some people say it's good, some people say it's very corrupt, you know? And then on the representative side, some people have 270 people in the district, you know, in the precincts, and then some people only have 15 or 17. So I don't know how that works. I mean, I'm used to just the selectmen, you know, and I didn't know if there was something, if we did do this, could it be a trial? Is there any type of law saying it can be a trial? I mean, I know you gotta vote on it, so.
Yeah.
It's tough.
It is. I think that's why we're doing this is we're reading all of these. we are looking at other towns, we will interview other towns and find out, even some of the people that have made changes, did they feel those were for the best? But I think at the end of the day, the Charter Commission has been tasked with making the best recommendation for the town based upon an incredible amount of research and information gathering. So, okay, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. Mike Units had commented back in his interview that he thinks we should establish a DPW.
Oh, yeah.
I would like to know if you agree with that.
I'll tell you what, I think it's a great idea. Number one, if you have a DPW, when the snow's out, everybody plows snow. They ain't saying I ain't plowing snow. That's really good about the DPW.
Okay.
If the water department need help, the highway department go over and help them. If I need help, they have to come over and help the highway department. I mean, it's a great tool.
Okay.
How would that change your position and your role right now?
I'll be retired.
Or someone in your position or your role? Would that change?
I don't want to be the director. I don't want to be that anyways, so, I mean, I'd rather just be the highway superintendent and work with him, whatever.
So would that change, because you mentioned, I feel like you mentioned so many people that you report to, right? So would a DPW just streamline who you report to?
I would say I had to report to the director now.
Okay.
That's what it sounds like to me.
And you'd be comfortable with that?
Depends who it is.
Okay. Understood. Anything else that you, as your role as highway superintendent, would like to discuss?
No,
Or have us know?
we don't knock.
You're not shy.
We don't knock mailboxes down because we like to, right? I want everybody to know that. Everybody gets mad 'cause if the mailbox falls down. No, it's from the snow.
Understood.
Do you pay to replace them?
Anybody have any questions for Keith? Thanks, Keith. You can come back.
I'll just stay here.
Okay, that's fine. Let the record show Keith is now acting as his role as a charter member. All right. Minutes, which Sandy distributed.
So obviously I wasn't here last week, but I see the item of remote participation being brought up by the selectmen. Do we have any update?
I do. I have one coming up. I get all kinds of updates for you.
All right. I'm particularly interested in that.
All right. It's trending positive.
All right.
Anybody else have any questions or comments about the minutes? Okay. I'll take a motion to accept the minutes of, I forgot the date, Monday, August 5th, 2019. So moved. Second. You have the 5th? All in favor? Okay. All right. Quite a few admin items. Just as a reminder, we do not have a meeting on August 26th because it has been replaced with the special town meeting. Oh, sorry. No, I don't have my glasses on, so. October 21st, our meeting has been rescheduled to the 22nd at the same time, and it will be in the same room. I've already booked the room. So we're all set there. So that's a Tuesday instead of a Monday in October. Remote participation, in the last Board of Selectmen meeting, they had a discussion about it. That actually is a Polycom phone. It appears we need to get a line in here. The Board of Selectmen chose to table the discussion further at the request of Mr. Bramwell until the September 5th meeting. There is a meeting coming up at the middle school, and they did not want to interfere with all the goings-on with the Chief Schleicher. So Mr. Bramwell asked if he could have some more time to do a little bit more research. I was asked specifically my thoughts on it. Obviously, you're all well aware of it. I think it's a good thing, especially, I mentioned, because our charter commission is charged with doing our work within a very specified amount of time. Time is of the essence, and we would like all members available to vote on important issues as that time comes up. So we made our voice known. It seems like they're trending towards accepting of it, but we do need to wait until September and then potentially getting some technical support and getting a line in here. But it looks like hopefully by the fall we could potentially have it, if all goes well. One of the things I wanted to talk about was, early on we had a discussion about not setting up our own Facebook page, which I'm still okay with, but recently, I don't know what was in the water, if it was the full moon, but it seems like a lot of posts got hijacked by other discussions, and we popped up in one of them in particular. And there seems to be more desire to see some more information from us, despite the fact that our webpage is probably one of the more updated ones out there, and we post our agendas and minutes in a timely manner.
The minutes of the meeting on Facebook.
Yes. So I'd like to open it up for discussion and how we'd like to address it. Sandy had mentioned, similar to the school committee, do we just post our agenda every 2 weeks? And if we do, who does it? Do we actually set up a Facebook page to do it? I know the school committee has one. I think ZVA has a page. I'm still not thrilled about setting up our own page, but I'm open to ideas on how to get that information out there without inviting too much offline discussion outside the meeting. If anybody has any suggestions.
Well, just to clarify, does the school committee have its own page?
I don't think
or-
the school committee has its own page. I think
Oh, it's
we
not?
use the Invest page a lot. That group is
Okay, so was it formerly Sherry that was posting to her own page and then sharing it to Invest In? Or was she just sending it directly to
Or she
Invest In?
posts to a couple of the Norton pages
Yeah, I think she just posted some
to
of the
just get it
groups.
out.
Okay,
The challenge with the groups is that you can't share from the groups.
right.
So that's the limit, and if you have a page versus a group that you're posting onto, the page you can share it out into your own personal page, or other people could share it.
Right. Do we want to set up a page? Do we need to set up a page?
I just think obviously there's some pros to it, but I think that some of the cons are, I just think it's gonna be something that's gonna be constantly monitored.
Yeah.
For instance, if we set up our own page, I think someone's gonna have to it's gonna become a full-time job. And the only reason I say that is because, for instance, if you create our own page and you start posting our agendas, people are gonna comment about what's in the agendas. Then if you don't comment on those or respond to those comments, is it that we're not
Right.
Being responsive.
participating?
We could shut off comment.
Well, that's the other thing, then you're gonna get comments of why they're shutting off comments.
And then have people go through our email address on the web page.
Well, what we could do is if we did post the agenda, shut the comments off and say specifically, comments have been disabled because we would like you to address, the entire commission, and please email us at this email address.
Even just putting out there that, we can't discuss it via social media.
Yep.
I just think it becomes a full-time job for somebody who's from this, you know, you're gonna task somebody from this commission to be responsible. Even if you do multiple people, I mean, it's going to turn into a constant battle.
Yeah, I don't think
going
anybody
back
should,
and forth with people
should be
about-
monitoring comments. I think that's too much.
If our goal is just to get the information out, for instance, the agenda, so we can say, look, this is our agenda, we'd like you to come and speak. If you have something in the agenda that you want us to talk about, in my opinion, we should just be posting, this is where to find the agenda. And that's simple as going, this is our webpage. If you want to continue to post the link to our webpage, a person can, I mean, we can give all the information they want, unless they're going to actually click and read. At some point, you got to put it on them, you know what I mean? I think going above and beyond, and then putting the agenda list on there, and then allowing people to comment on what we're doing day in and day out, I just think you're going to open it to people who, frankly, have no idea what we're doing, and now it becomes what happened the other day on there. And we know what happened the other day, and it doesn't take much to read it. You're getting these comments from, you know, left field.
So I'm just sitting here looking for other boards that have Facebook pages. This is, as far as I can tell, the selectmen don't have one, the school committee doesn't have one, the finance committee doesn't have one. The only one that I can find, and it's not an exhaustive search, it was the past 90 seconds or so, is the planning board, which has 150 people that follow it, and they just seem to be posting meeting information that gets almost no interaction. So I guess what's the problem we're trying to solve, or are we throwing a solution out and trying to find?
I just think, in my opinion, we have people that are constantly saying that we're not putting out information.
They want to be spoon-fed.
I personally think that's the complete opposite. I think of any committee, you know, like you said, our webpage is updated, I think, the most frequently. I think we do put information out there when we're using the town alerts system, which a lot of towns aren't doing it for meetings. I think we're putting as much information more than any other committee. I just think to the point where how much more can you do for somebody to say, look, we have all this information. We're giving you all this information. Not only are we following the laws and stuff like that when it comes to having to put it in newspapers, but we're also putting it above and beyond on social media. We're giving you our link to our website. So creating a Facebook page, and then like you said, getting maybe 150 to 200 people in town to like it. I don't think those are the 200 people that we're worried about. We're worried about 5 or 6 people that all of a sudden will hijack a post and come in a comment and say, I didn't know any of this was going on. I don't think you're going to be able to stop that.
And is there anybody on social media who would look at our page but isn't looking at Janie's posts on Norton Neighbors and, you know, whatever? If they're interested in what's going on in town, they're members of those other groups
Yeah.
that we're posting
Well,
to.
strangely enough, I forget, I think it was something about the water that we popped up in. It wasn't even on Janie's post about the Charter Commission, even though she had just posted the survey that day. And then her post got hijacked by the water. So,
And the other thing that people need to realize is we're not a standing committee. I mean, we're not going to
Right.
establish great, miraculous communication that's going to stand. I mean, we're not a standing committee. We're done in 18 months, and people have to realize that. So I don't know if it's worth setting something up and putting so much time and effort into it, and then.
yeah, I don't think a lot of, I think there is maybe some benefit to saying, hey, Charter Commission meeting is coming up this Monday, our agenda is online, please come visit us. And we may actually entice people to come to the meeting. You know, we can say it's available to watch on, it's going to be aired live and will be available on the Norton Media Center. If we do that every 2 weeks, it's not hurting anything. I don't necessarily think we need a page to do it. I personally don't mind being responsible for doing it. If somebody wanted to volunteer for that task, I'm fine with that too. But making people aware of an upcoming meeting, I think, is easy enough, and then they can't say, well, we didn't even know, because they didn't go to the website.
I just think too, is like, you're not gonna, in my opinion, you're not gonna stop the misinformation of what we are actually tasked to do. I mean, I think you have this misconception that, I think some people in town actually think that we're gonna be out cleaning water pipes next week, and I really do. I mean, it's to the point where I think we're gonna be the ones out there actually treating the water, and
Wait till you see the survey
Yeah.
results.
I mean, but this is what I'm saying, I don't think you're gonna stop that. I think people are upset about certain things. We all know, it doesn't take a rock science to figure out that water is a major issue in this town. I understand the frustration. It's really unnecessary that they have this problem in town in the year that we're in. But I think fixing the misnomer that the Charter Commission itself is going to fix the water and we're gonna have this, unbelievable water after treatment. I don't know the first thing about that treatment plant, and I'm sure a lot of people in this meeting don't have any idea but how do we get that information out there without just totally repeating ourselves and then making a page and then just asking the same thing when someone says, well, I hope this Charter Commission fixes the water. Well, that'd be great, but realistically, that's probably not gonna happen, you know what I mean? What can we do? Well, yeah, there's certain things that we can do pertaining to the charter when it comes to the water. If you wanna speak about that, then that's fine. And I believe Janie said that perfectly on one of the posts, It wasn't condescending, it was just, I think it's some if you wanna talk about something that pertains exactly to the charter of how the Water Commission works, then that's what we can help with, or we can attempt to help with, or at least do some research on. But answering the same questions over and over again from our Facebook page, I believe is just gonna be a nightmare of comments of, and it's not just gonna be water, it's gonna be other complaints too. It's gonna turn into a complaint session,
Yeah, and I don't want to turn it into that's the depository for providing us information. We set up a web page, we set up an email address, we all have personal town email addresses. There's enough way, they can come to this meeting, there's enough ways for the public to come and address us publicly, privately, that we should not have to be doing it on Facebook.
So I wasn't suggesting that we create a page, or, because I think.
But I wasn't sure how to go about
Yeah, I think.
getting it there.
I think it's to our benefit to keep people, to just keep throwing things out there to people, to keep pushing ourselves out there to say, we're here, we're looking at this, we have the survey. I think it would be great if you could get access to the Norton Alert Facebook page, because that would be a place that, it's not the Charter Commission posting on there, so people will be less likely to respond, thinking someone's gonna respond to that. The other option too is we could ask the people that are running the NC3 page now to put stuff out there. And again, then it's on them to answer, not on us, if it was an outside person. So if we wanted to kind of create the buzz and then get stuff out there. Again, I just think it's a good thing for us to have people know that we're around, know that we're still working, know that, when it comes time to voting, we need your vote, that we want everybody on board.
What if we create like a person instead of a page and name it the Norton Charter Commission? So the person can post and share and do everything so they're not linked, they're not pigeonholed by a page or a group. It's more just the actual title of the person will be that. It can be linked to our email address. So, obviously you need an email address to create a Facebook person, you know what I mean? But you can create the person, then the person sharing it is.
I think we still have the same
Is that
issue
any different than a
regardless.
page? I feel like it's the same.
Well,
challenge.
I just think the problem with the page is that you become like an issue of, for instance, if that person became a member of the certain groups that we all know, so a lot of the information's at least pushed out there. We know the groups like Norton Avis has over, 5,800 people on it. I think it's a lot easier as a person to write on that page than it is trying to share things from a group or from a page.
So like when I make a post, it wouldn't say Janie Goodwin, it would say Charter Commission.
Exactly. As a person. Because that person could, for instance, if you created it as a person and name it whatever you want, but obviously something to do with the Charter Commission, be linked to an email here. And then when that person requests to belong to the Norton Neighbors, it'd be just like someone else posting from Norton Neighbors. The only difference would be linked to ours. It would be the information that the person that's tasked with it to be put out there.
So for what it's worth, that would violate Facebook's terms of service, and there would be the risk that they would just shut it down because you're supposed to be a real person and all that. But I guess what I heard from you, Sandy, was a little bit different from where the conversation started, right? I think that, at least what I heard from the beginning of the conversation was, hey, there was some ramblings online and maybe we do need to fill this need that seems to be out there. What I heard from you, Sandy, was much more proactive, was more, we need to keep the community engaged. We're eventually going to have materials that we're going to want people to vote on. We want to sort of keep a buzz going around, right? Which seems like when I ask the question, what's the problem we're trying to solve? Those feel like two very different things to me. The first one, I felt like we're doing a lot to keep people informed already. I was going down the path of I don't think we need to do this, but as you described it and framed it differently, it feels like a different problem that we're trying to solve, or a different opportunity perhaps. So I don't know if it's worth maybe taking a step back or even tabling the conversation for now and coming at it from that lens, maybe with coming in, rather than us batting a ball around a little bit, maybe coming back in the next meeting and saying, hey, here's, if we want to keep a buzz going and keep all this, here is a plan that we can sort of put in front of everybody and beat up a proposal a little bit, as opposed to all just kind of bouncing ideas around now.
Well, here's my thought. I feel like I agree with both points, and I agree with it can't hurt, right? It can't hurt to get these posts out, right? I'm not sure we should spend so much time figuring out how we're gonna do it. I think we just use what's there, and we just keep posting, and we say, okay, maybe we make an agreement, every 2 weeks, or once a week we'll make a post. Once a week we'll post our agenda, right? It'll get posted, it's out there. I'm just not sure that taking up so much time thinking about a plan and getting out there is worth our time. I just think we need to use what's out there. We know people go to Norton Neighbors, we know they go to this Invest site. It's unfortunate that they can't share from there if people want to, but I think we just use what's there. And I don't know who mentioned, but it might be worth, if we're making a post, just saying this is an informational post only. Any questions or comments, please reach out to this email, that could be in a comment. But that seems to be the place where people are going. I think going or creating anything else is just gonna be time consuming, and I feel like we as a commission have a lot to do anyway. I'm not sure it's worth coming up with a big plan, but I agree with both. Like, I think the webpage is updated much more so than other boards and committees, 100%. And I also agree, it just can't hurt to put it out there. It can't hurt to post the minutes. If that's what someone wants to see, I will post the minutes, even though they're there. And so that would be my opinion. Use what's out there, use where people are, and just get the information out there in a way that we can try to avoid being confrontational, myself included.
And I think that that rather than closing off comments, to sort of just respond with that kind of pat answer of thanks for your suggestion, we'll take it up at the next meeting, we'll
Yeah.
discuss it.
Please attend a meeting.
What's that?
Please attend a meeting,
Yeah,
or
we'll
please
find
email
out.
us directly, yeah.
It is hard, though, when people will just say, well, I don't want to go to the webpage and look, I want you to put it right here.
Yeah.
And tag me in it. Like, it's very difficult not to come back at that and say.
And I want you to read it to me.
And I think the problem too is that you take a giant risk when you don't respond to the comments or you don't have something to answer.
Yeah.
Well, if no one answers and no one disputes it, when does it actually become true? You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that's the case, but what happens is when 3 people write the same comment, and whether it's totally wrong, it's totally false of what we're doing, what we're trying to do, and you don't respond to it, or at least you don't have something type of rebuttal to say, we understand your concern, please address at these type of things. Now, all of a sudden, it becomes the rumor mill, and we all know how Facebook works. I mean, once somebody posts something, it becomes, gospel until somebody can actually go on there and disprove it. And then the problem is it's 25 comments down and no one's reading them anyway. So I just don't want to take the risk of getting misinformation because people are commenting on it, have no idea what's actually going on.
But that can happen anyway, with or without us.
And it is happening.
Yeah.
I mean,
I agree, but I
Janie's
think
post
that
is a perfect
if we
example
go
of
out,
it.
if we go out and are purposely putting them out there, and then where the comments are coming on, I think if we do this, in my opinion, you have to have somebody to actually at least monitor the comments. I don't care if it's something that you just put out that's a blanket statement on when someone does it, but if you don't, I think we take the risk of, well, it's just a free-for-all and people are gonna say whatever they want.
Well, I think there's enough of us here who are out on these sites that are, actively looking at posts and comments that, if there was something that was raised, one of us is going to get a heads up on it fairly quickly.
Yeah, I'm kind of torn, I have to admit.
Come on, you monitor everything out there.
Oh, I do, no, but I.
You hate not knowing when there's something out there going on.
No, what I'm torn on is how you respond.
I agree, I think it has to be,
It needs to be,
Because it's tough.
yeah, it needs to be
is.
factual. It needs to provide
Totally
factual
factual, yeah.
information only.
But, and when do you respond, when do you not? And, because if it goes off the tracks,
and we don't even know who's responding, and honestly, if it's a legit comment and a legit question, those are the ones you're gonna respond to. Okay, so now you're picking and choosing which ones you're commenting on and responding to. but how do you know half these people that are right on, they're made up names, it's made up everything. So now you respond to people that aren't even really attempting to get information, they're just trying to,
Troll.
troll or stoke the fires. I mean, that's what my concern is with this, is that once you start getting into this realm of posting everything, now we've heard this a million times. The town used to be run at the coffee shop, now it's run online. That's a legit comment that you hear, you know what I mean? And I don't want that to start happening with this group, is that we're responding so much stuff online that we're actually discussing more stuff online or getting ahead of ourselves than what we should actually be doing in the meetings.
My feeling on this, though, and even Dave had alluded to it a little bit, I feel like when other departments or other boards have posted their agenda, it gets a few likes, there's never any comments, it's kind of like, yeah, whatever. Where we actually wind up getting discussed is in some completely random post. And it's not going to be under an agenda or a notification of a meeting coming up. I think it's just gonna be random that, somebody's just gonna say, well, why isn't the Charter Commission dealing with this? And that's when we get dragged in, and there's nothing we can do about that.
Well, I can certainly see we could post the agenda and someone sees the water department's on the schedule. That takes off.
But that's implying that somebody has actually opened that agenda that we've posted, and I think that's a long shot.
Yeah. I mean, I do feel that, that despite all the action on these pages, at the end of the day, I think most people read them for the information and they move. I mean, let's face it, it's really just a handful of people who generally are involved in these discussions. So, so I do think it's important to keep, there's 5,000 people on that page.
I agree.
And there's only, 10 people you see regularly posting, on, we get these 10, 20, whatever it is, even 50. It is a small percentage, you know what I mean? And so a lot of people get a lot of benefit out of it, and they just read it and they move on. And they appreciate the information, and they just, they do whatever they do with it.
And let's be honest, of 5,800 members on that Facebook page, I will bet you money that there's way less than that reading the Sun Chronicle. So I understand there's an avenue for it. It's a way to get information on.
Yeah.
I just think that it's not, the difference of that is you have to be able to have somebody be monitoring, because if not, you just run the risk of it spiraling out of control. I have no problem with doing it. I think it's a great avenue. I just think we need to make sure we have a game plan of who's monitoring, what are we responding with, and what's the comment we're gonna come out with when, like you said, it may not be this agenda, but 2 agendas from now, if we're speaking about something that's a hot item thing, and now all of a sudden, it's something that everyone in town is aggravated with, or water, for instance, is a great thing. When those comments start flying, how are we responding to it?
So for what it's worth, I just read 15 of Sherry's posts in the Invested Norton group where she posted the agenda. There was one person that asked a question one time about something on the agenda, other than there was one with the school committee and Board of Selectmen joint meeting that had a little bit of conversation, but there was one question on the others, and then a few people saying thanks for posting it, and that was the extent of the interaction.
So she posted it personally?
She posted from her account on the Invested Norton's Future Facebook group.
I will
Okay.
say it's a different crowd, though.
Yeah, totally.
Different crowd
I'm
than
just-
Norton Neighbors, I
Yeah.
think, in terms of what you get for responses.
Yeah.
it's a-
Does she not post to Norton
I
Neighbors?
don't think she does,
Okay.
right?
My thumbs only go so fast.
Well,
I think from my perspective, so I'm kind of agreeing with everybody, but I totally agree with Sandy in the sense that I think we want to create a buzz around this, because at the end of the day, we're going to post something to this town, and we don't want to be like, because reality is most people aren't going to the website, they're not going out of the way. So we want to be in front of them for the next 18 months, right? So, and they know we're doing things, and they may not be all that in-depth, but we're out there. So I think that's really important, that we're out there.
okay.
So to me, that's more important, and, I totally understand where you're coming from on it could get out of control, but to me, it's that at the end, that's gonna be more important for us, that we were out there, we were giving people information. And they want us, at the end of the day, we want them to want us to succeed, right? So that we do, we all succeed. So that's kind of that's personally where I'm coming down, I think.
Yeah, I think Kevin's point, is not saying don't put it out there, but if we're gonna put it out there, we've gotta make responses. We've gotta right, monitor those responses
Absolutely.
that are up there and just clarify any misstatements or anything that may come up in the comments. And I also think that you're right when you say, Laurie, talk about, Charter Commission will just kind of come up in random posts, and it's not even something that we posted.
Yeah.
So the way we had resolved this last time was to have Janie and Denise sort of keeping up top. I mean, do we want to reevaluate that? Is that what we're talking about right now, or is that still working?
Well, it was until I jumped in on the last one.
But you didn't jump in, see, well, I think in terms of monitoring responses, I think we should be careful in terms of, like, there were a couple, I was watching the back and forth too, and I purposely didn't get in because now there's 3
We got open
other
meeting law issues.
Charter Commission members in there talking, it's just too much.
Sure.
So I do think if we do choose to make a post, every other week, or every week, whatever it may be, keep it informational, I'd say we keep minimal people responding to that post. What people do on other posts, that's a whole other story.
And I think if we keep Janie and Denise the main contact with on Facebook, and if it becomes an issue where it becomes too much, or it becomes an issue that when we stop posting stuff and we need another person to do it, or if they need help, or if we need to reevaluate, I think we just kind of see what happens when we start doing that. But I agree with you. If you stop posting the agenda, and it's not an issue, like Dave's saying, there's not many comments, it's a few likes, and we move on, it's a great way to get information out. If it becomes an issue and we need somebody else monitoring it, then we'll approach that. We don't know what's gonna happen, but let's get the information out on these pages, and let's see what happens. And if we need to change it, we'll vote on it and change it in another meeting. But at least you're getting the information out.
So do we want to try it for the next meeting, seeing right before the next meeting, posting the agenda?
All right, so I'll take responsibility for posting it if Janie and Denise want to monitor the responses for it.
I'd rather post it.
Okay.
If that's all right. If I'm gonna monitor the responses and comment on anything that might come up, I'd rather post it.
Okay.
Just because you get notifications, so you can just be her post, which is probably smart.
Okay.
Can I be
So-
responsible for complaining about what's in the post?
Of course.
I wouldn't expect anything less.
But also, so if we post that, so, and we can even, if people, let's just go with that first, and just forget it.
Yeah, I think
Too much
simple
on my plate.
as, we have a meeting coming up, here's either a link to our agenda or our agenda, and we invite you to attend.
We link to the agenda, we can get them to the webpage.
What's that?
If we link, we can get them to the webpage.
Yes, and maybe just say, this page is updated periodically, please check back.
Has lots of information.
Yeah.
in it.
And I'm thinking maybe like Thursday, or whenever the agenda. like
So the
Thursday
agenda
would be
has to
good.
officially post by Thursday,
Then
7
that's-
PM.
Then that's when I'll.
Yep.
And we can just evaluate as those posts start going up and kind of see what.
So,
where it
even on
takes us.
Friday, at Friday it's up and it's ready to go. People can put it in their calendars because they're missing out. All right. Any other, okay, so we talked about communication, Facebook. All right, is everybody happy with that decision for now? We can readdress it if needed later.
Keith, what do you think about Facebook?
I use Facebook for healthier things such as posting stuff, keeping Norton informed, and all sorts of things.
We appreciate it, Peter, thank you.
Right? Laura in the game.
Okay, one of the things, going back to interviews, upcoming interviews next, just a heads up, we got 3 weeks before our next meeting, so, get reading. There's a lot of information out here. September 9th is our next meeting. We've got town planner, town accountant, town clerk, and the board of registrars. Looks like heading up the departments, counseling and aging, and then treasurer will end the departments with Bill Gouveia. And then we head into the boards and committees and commissions in the fall.
Yeah, we have a couple
I know.
stragglers. We have, well, I'm gonna reach out to, Simmons.
Yeah,
the new
Chief
county
Simmons.
chief, yes, to see if he, we gotta give him a couple days of, before I jump.
Bring him right in.
So,
Do we ever hear back from Chief Sliker?
no.
Okay.
So I'll reach out to the new chief and.
He may be
also-
inclined after he retires, and there's nothing wrong taking his information from a position of hindsight, if he wanted to. I'm not
That's it,
pushing.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think if he wanted to, he probably would have.
Yep. And then also, the library is also not, I still have to coordinate with her.
Okay.
Oh, I did have a question on this, though. I have started getting requests, and it was just one initially, and then I just got another one today, from committees asking if we can go to their meeting. And at first, I was thinking, okay, well, let's kind of, that's nice to get everybody, to get the whole committee. But my concern is that then it's opening up to everybody wanting us to go to them. And if we're trying to get 3 or 4 committees in an evening, I feel like that's gonna be a challenge to try to go to everybody else's meeting. But I wanted to put it out to the group. The planning board was the first one to ask me, and then cable commission just asked me, but their meeting is even, it's like 11 or 1 o'clock. It's at a time that.
During the day?
Yeah, yeah. So but again, that's where I started to really, with the planning board, I was kind of, maybe that would be nice
Yeah.
to be able to see them all, because there's 7 of them. But then when I started getting other requests, I'm thinking, but now does that open us up to, how do you say yes to one and no to the next one?
Is the request to come and see them in action, or to come and
No.
ask them questions like
Right.
Yes.
Right, and so instead of them coming into us for an interview, the request was, could we go to their meeting? I don't think they understood that in either case that we're seeing 3 or 4. It's not just one committee per meeting. That we can't really, change our schedule, because then we have other committees going on the same night.
I think with the planning board, their rationale was there are a lot of people that want to talk to you, but may not be available on that night. So I am torn between, is it more important for all of us to hear from a few board members that can make our meeting, or is it more important for a few of us to hear from all of their board? And I don't know what the correct answer to that is.
Could they put their comments in writing and submit them? Instead of, I don't know that we need to interview everybody in person.
Right.
But they could answer a questionnaire, the questions that you ask.
Yep.
as a committee?
Yeah,
As a
I've
committee.
started tailoring a few more for boards.
Or even individual members if they wanted to submit, if they have different opinions or.
So set it up, invite them to a meeting, but then if they can't come to the meeting, they can send their comments.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because you're already sending the questions to them in advance, right? Or some.
Just ideas, yeah,
Yeah.
think about this sort of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so,
And we're going to have to tailor it a little bit for boards and commissions
Yeah.
or run a little differently, but
because that's going to get to be a lot.
yeah, I think
And
so.
Yeah,
And
I think everybody's on other committees or has other obligations, and we've sort of set our own schedule.
Could we, for the next meeting, maybe talk about how we want to tailor those questions, so then I can start getting them out to the committees?
Sure. If anybody has any ideas, if you want to brainstorm and come ready with questions that you think we can kind of tailor it down to a, less than 10.
Can you
List.
send out your list as a starting point, the ones
Sure.
that you asked here?
Yep.
The other thing I just wanted to bring up, I know we're gonna start moving from individuals into some of these committees and stuff like that. I was just wondering how we felt about possibly seeing if, Mr. Kimball and/or Mr. Salvo wanted to be interviewed by our committee.
I think it's a great idea.
A couple of the reasons I say that is, we all know how many years and how much knowledge they probably have about the town. I think, just the knowledge alone, but the years alone as selectmen and, obviously the different committees they've all been on and volunteers and the time they put in. I'm not saying they will, I haven't spoken to either of them, but I think we should put it out.
They're both part of a of a committee that I just haven't gotten
Yeah.
inviting, because when you get to some of those other committees, like it's the historical district, like I'm
Yeah.
trying to still figure out if all of them are actually meeting, but I
Functioning.
know both of them are on committees that I will hit at some
Yeah,
point.
Bob's on a common committee,
And he's also
Cemetery.
on, the housing authority.
housing, well, Bob Salvo's on the housing.
Yeah.
I just think with like,
You're talking about
also-
having him in as a one-on-one, right?
Yeah.
But
I
that
just
would
think
be the
with-
That
same,
wouldn't
I mean,
hurt.
those are pretty much gonna be one-on-ones,
The
because,
committees are so small.
yeah.
I just think that if we have him, if he's gonna come in with the committee he's on, for instance, if, you know, Bob Salvo's gonna come in with the housing, and we kind of ask him if he's willing to be asked about different things
Right,
with his
right.
time as selectman, I have no problem with that. There's no point of calling him twice, and there's no point of making a change in the schedule. I just think that we're doing ourselves a serious disservice, that if we're gonna ask somebody like Bob Salvo to come in and ask him stuff about just the,
No, right.
you know,
Housing
housing. I mean, don't get me wrong, I wanna know about the housing too,
Right,
but
right.
I think there's a lot of other things that Bob can, or I should say Bob Salvo can help us out with, or at least pass along information above and beyond housing. Mr. Kimball, I'm gonna go with, even if he's on a committee, it's gonna be the same way. I mean, he's probably gonna be somebody we talked to for a long time. He's been here longer than, I mean, running some type of portion of this town. Well, you know, if he's willing to come in and talk to us, I think we're doing ourselves a crazy disservice on not taking him up on it.
Well, I think that's true for a lot of the committee members that we have coming in, and we'll have people that have served on multiple committees in the past. And I think it would be nice to know what other experiences they've had in the past, and, you know, so we can look at the questions. They can answer questions not just for their own committee, but for
Yeah.
anything they've been involved with.
I can pull out the Board of Selectmen questions and see if there's specific ones we want to kind of hit with Mr. Salvo and Mr. Kimball, when they want to come in.
And it kind of goes, and I understand like the same as like the finance committee. We have a finance committee come in. There's going to be members, I mean, Paul, you know, Mr. Luca, and I know Mr. Hamrick has stepped down. If he would be willing to come in and speak to us, even if he does it with the finance committee, I think 50 years of being here, running some type of portion of the finance committee for all the years that he did, I think we're just wasting a lot of knowledge by not seeing if he's willing to come in and speak to us about anything that he wants to speak to us about. That's all I'm saying. I just don't want all of a sudden just pigeonhole those people into speaking about, you know, the three things they're gonna, because they're part of some committee that we haven't come in on. I know there's a lot of people like that, but those are the ones I can kind of picture off my head that are recently not in the positions they have been, whether they stepped down or whether, you know, the election, but I think we need to call them in.
Yeah. I think in terms of the committee members, I see them more as not just speaking on behalf of their committee, but they're the people that are the most involved in town. And so that's all the other reason why, even if their committee maybe doesn't have a whole lot in the charter, per se, you know, these are the people that have been involved, that have been volunteering, that really know what's going on. So I think our questions, if they're more, I don't think we pigeonhole them into for your committee, like we have necessarily with the people that have been employees.
I just think if we let them know that previous, saying,
Sure.
hey, you're coming in as part of this committee, but would you be willing to speak to us about the involvement and the amount of time you put into this town? I think because we're asking you questions that are going to be, you know, off the beaten path of, say, the housing or whatever, the other committee that we're on. I think if we do that, that's perfectly fine.
I think we should just invite them in.
Yeah.
We'd like to speak to you, we'd like to speak to you. We've combined had X number of years of service, and we think you could offer this board a lot, and we'd like you, both of you to come in on separate nights. We know you're part of it. I mean, together, maybe not with your committee, but the two of them could come in together.
And even if we keep them after, I mean, if they're willing to stay, we can do the committee as together, the committee they're on, and if we ask Mr. Kimball to stay or Mr. Salvo to stay to answer the questions after that, so we're not, dragging people into it that aren't pertaining to those questions, I'm fine with that. I just think we need to make sure we're asking these people the questions that, for our further knowledge.
Yeah, so I'll make sure when I send the email out to them, to let them know it's not just on behalf of the committee, that it's on their experience in the town.
Okay. Any other updates, Sandy?
I don't think so, no.
Okay. All right. Survey. So it's been rolled out, which is nice. The website is updated. The Norton Media Center is running our bulletin. Town Hall and Senior Center is done. It's on the town's news page, and Janie has posted it to some of the Facebook groups. I think the only thing we had pending was the Norton alerts.
Yeah, I did
Chris-
reach out, and I did not hear back. I'll reach out again
Okay.
tomorrow, but
All right.
I did reach out and see if he would do that, but I haven't heard back. I imagine he's super busy with,
I was wondering if he was on vacation last week.
oh, maybe,
Yeah. All right.
maybe. I'll
If-
reach out again.
If you're struggling, let me know, because I do need to get in touch with him on how to access Facebook specifically within Norton Alerts and see if there's a way of doing that, so we don't have to go through him. And once that is done, so the Norton Alerts page allows you to share posts of, to your own personal Facebook page. You obviously don't have to if you don't want to, but it's suggested if and when you do see that post, if you could post it to your own personal pages, just to kind of spread the word a little bit further. So that's it on the rollout. Last I checked, we had 69 responses.
That does count your.
Oh, my
sorry.
test one, so
Yeah,
six,
so-
wait, I have a paper one.
There you go.
69.
So I pulled the list this
Okay.
evening of responses. Do you want an interim update on? what
Yeah.
the sort of-
You have the actual you have them right there?
Yeah. So I'm certainly not gonna read them all. There's 9 pages of them here. But I did go through and, so I read all of them and I tried to categorize them, right? If somebody said, get rid of this, and, I sort of marked one tick for that. So I can go through some of that summary. Just in general, there were a lot of comments about things that are out of the scope or out of our purview. Stop the brown water was one of the biggest items on what should Norton stop doing. But there was quite a bit that was relevant to the work that we're doing. I do want to say that we shouldn't look at this as a vote, right? I do have tallies of how many responses came to one, right? But it's not even a representative sample of the town, right? I look at this as ideas that we should be considering, but not necessarily based on volumes, so.
At this point, it's 0.5% of the voting population.
Yeah, and it could have been the same person 68 times.
Yeah.
Right, so we just don't know that.
You can just delete mine. I don't know if there's a way of doing that, but,
And I can send out, I have this on a Word doc at home, I can send this out to everybody so that you have it as well.
okay.
It's easy.
Yeah, one of the things I'd like to talk about is just in general, how we have access to that and
Yeah.
summarize it.
Sure. So for the question of what should we stop doing, there were 60 responses for that. So 68 people responded in total, but you don't have to respond to every question. So none of the questions had 68 responses. But in summary, there were 23 comments saying some version of stop doing town meeting. 7 that were some version of stop having one person appoint the finance committee, and 4 that were some version of stop having the water committee or the water commission be independently elected. And then there was a bunch of other stuff around, brown water, stop spending so much money, right? Okay. And things with that. So there were onesie-twosie of other things that were more in line with us, but those were the ones that came out as being thematic. The next question was, what should we do what do we currently do that we should continue doing? There were 53 responses in there, including not much, which I did not bring into my counts, but really the only ones that showed up as a trend there, town meeting actually got 2 comments to continue doing, and keeping a board of selectmen got 3 comments. A lot of things about, continuing with paying bills online and having a website and balancing budgets and having volunteer commissions, so kind of all over the place there. For what we should start doing, there were comments about having term limits, which I thought was interesting. Having representation on boards based on precinct, so not just at large for everything, but making sure we get representation across the town. And then individual comments were suggested having an elected finance committee, an elected school committee, elected town manager, an elected conservation commission.
Wait, isn't the school committee elected already?
They're required to be elected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody wants to start using liquid salt on the roads.
Look at what?
Liquid salt for snow.
Oh, Brian, yeah.
And then, and I don't know if I said this, but there were 60 responses for that one. And then there was the catch-all of, is there anything else you'd like to share with the commission? 49 responses to that. A number of them were out of scope for what we are really looking at. But there were 4 comments in there about moving away from town meeting, 1 suggesting to keep it, and then another reference to precinct-based representation. So lots of commentary. It's 9 pages of 12-point font, so people were certainly eager and willing to share their thoughts. And I'll send this Word doc out to the broader committee. And so in terms of your question of how do we keep it updated, so it's, I just copied and pasted the whole page into a Word document, so I can do that periodically if we'd like to get those updates.
Can you share it to a Google Sheet and then,
I
send it to a Google Sheet and then share that with all of us? Would that
Yeah,
be-
it's a little harder to read in a spreadsheet though, because it's just,
Yeah.
you get 6 lines of text, it's just easier to format in a Word doc, but yeah, you can do it in a spreadsheet if that's what we want to do.
So is that all the responses? That's how it comes out looking for you?
Yeah, so,
Can I look at that? I'm just curious to see what it looks like all the responses as they come out. I just want to look at it.
Sure.
Not the actual responses, but the
Yeah.
format of it.
You
Yeah.
brought up, Water Sewer Commission elected. How about, eliminated go to DPW?
I don't recall.
I got
seeing
one.
that in there, but-
Did that come up a couple times?
I got one.
But I thought it came up a couple times.
I might have just missed it,
Okay.
it's possible.
Yeah. I happen to know who this came from, unfortunately, but odd way of getting it. He got it before it was even made available. But the very first thing on here was abolish the Water Sewer Commission. Make it part of a combined DPW. Stop dictating how schools and buildings are being used. Empty buildings can be used for town purposes. Use resident subject matter experts to guide town through projects to avoid pitfalls and expensive mistakes. Have an IT director. Can't run a business of this size and technological sophistication without, I can't read it.
Without that person, I think.
Yeah, the school department has several people in their IT. How do we want to handle, at this point, there weren't any in so the town meeting, the town hall envelope was empty, I checked it tonight. Kevin is going to check on the Council on Aging box. But how do we want to add those into the mix? Somebody's going to have to type them in.
I think we just scan them in, right, and add them to the Google.
Type them in where? I'm sorry?
Well, we're going to have to consolidate them because we're getting handwritten ones, which I'm not expecting a lot of, to be honest, given that we haven't seen too many, even electronically.
Can we just scan those in and then attach them to the Google Docs?
You can, I guess it depends if, do you want it just as a separate, or do you want it compiled, like, you know?
I think it's important that we compile the actual responses in, which means somebody's going to have to type it in.
But if it's just in a,
That's just a sheet,
Yeah,
but
it's
that's
just
just
a-
a Word doc. Didn't you say you cut and
Yeah,
paste? So that's
yeah.
just a Word doc.
Okay.
What if you
So-
scan that in as like a
You'd need a-
PDF and then just, I mean, you can
You
edit
need
it, right?
predictive text in order to convert it, and it's not going to understand handwriting. If it was
Right.
typed,
He's
that's one
saying
thing.
just leave it as a,
Yeah, I don't
leave it
know.
in his.
But if we wanted to consolidate,
Well, what if-
Okay.
What if you just add them to the same folder? If we
I
have,
mean, these are all just narratives, so
Yeah.
I don't know that it matters.
what's the difference of me well, anybody typing that up, and it's just gonna scan in the same thing. I mean,
I'm just thinking for the purposes of if we wanted to aggregate certain specific topics.
Right.
So how about we start with scanning it and dropping it on the end, because if we're only gonna get one, then
Yeah.
it's just easy. And then if we get bombarded by manually
Readdress it.
ones, we can,
and we can even summarize that
Okay.
with like 3 bullet points, and then you know what it is. I mean,
The Council of Aging, won't they all be written out, or?
Yes. I expect that would probably be a little bit better utilized than, so.
Yeah, we just really don't want.
I was pleasantly surprised to still see the stack of surveys sitting on the table, so I figured somebody would have taken off with them by now.
I'm gonna speak with Denise about going down to the Council on Aging anyway, so we can speak, and try to find when they're the busiest, so they have an event going on.
Right.
Hopefully we can go down there and just speak to them and kind of inform everybody what the survey is and, why we're looking for them, in case anybody has any questions. So as soon as that happens, I'll let you guys know how that goes.
So can you put that in the Dropbox? Can you do that, put that Word document in there so
I
that we can just
can.
look at all the responses?
sure.
I'd be curious to look through them and,
If that's easier than emailing it out, I can certainly do that.
oh, unless everybody wants email, I'm sorry, I was just
Well, no, no.
thinking, I don't, either way.
Word doc, put it
I'm
everywhere.
sorry. I didn't notice that.
Dropbox works for me.
Okay.
It's probably easiest to have everything in Dropbox, because those are our public.
I agree.
Records. and
Yeah.
It's easy to,
I'll scan the handwritten one and put it up there too. Just delete there's one in there, it just says Laura Parkey testing under every answer. That's just me testing it, literally.
And then as they come in, I don't think you have to keep posting them again, you can just repost, right? You can just add, just redrop, I guess?
Yeah, I can just update the document.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny, I can tell when you post it online, because I just get, a pile of alerts in my email saying, there's a new update, there's a new update, there's a new update. So, as they come in, I see them.
Okay.
I'm hoping if we can get out to Norton Alerts and share that again, I would probably, since it's been a week, I would probably share that with the Norton Neighbors Invest In again and just do another push.
Okay.
And we can all personally save them to our pages. I had a conversation earlier. I had told my husband how many we got back, and he's like, "Oh, that's great." And I was thinking it didn't sound great, and he said, "No," he said, "generally 1 to 2% of your population is a good response to any survey," which I thought was sad, but
I'll wait a couple days, though, I don't wanna do it a couple times a week, but maybe once a week,
Yeah.
I'll wait it.
Nope,
wait it out
that's
a
fine.
little bit And see how many more come in.
okay. Any further discussion on the survey?
Is there a deadline on the survey? Who put that?
No, we didn't put one out there. We kind of left it open-ended. I figure we'll probably leave it up there until we get to the point where we want to start making some more firm decisions.
Right.
Yeah, we can, I think that's the type of thing, like every couple of weeks, if we said, hey, if you haven't filled out our survey yet, I can do another Norton Alerts reminder. But again, given all the Triple E stuff lately, I feel like people might be getting a little oversaturated with the Norton Alerts. I'll give it a break, and hopefully that dies down a bit.
Can I make a suggestion on
Sure.
on the email? Just maybe a little bit more, I mean, you have to keep it short because people aren't going to read a lot, but maybe a little more explanation of the survey, as opposed to just here's the survey for the Charter Commission, kind of explaining what
Okay.
we're doing. Because there wasn't there one response that said, "I don't know what I'm doing right. I don't know what the survey is for."
Yeah.
Which,
That's
you
a
know,
great
we could have read the heading, but.
Doesn't the survey on it say specifically what we want to
It
do?
does, but I mean, who never wanted people to want to click in the first place, right?
Okay.
To just, or even just to say in the email, there are 3 short questions, just letting us know what we're doing right and wrong in Norton or something, just to get people knowing it's not an hour-long survey. It's
Okay.
50 questions. It's.
Okay. Note of that. Okay, talked about that. All right, the Stoughton Charter. Let's talk about that a bit. Okay. Town of Stoughton, representative town meeting since 1972. They have 5 board of selectmen and a strong town manager. They have a population of 26,962, of which 19,302 are registered. Going through Articles 1 or 2. It looks like they have 8 precincts. I did look that up. Anything within Article 3, the Board of Selectmen?
Just thought it was interesting, their role in the budget seems to be a little more active and a little more defined, I guess.
Yeah, I made a note of that,
Board of
too.
Selectmen. And of course, the residency requirement for the town manager.
Yep.
And they're actually the water and sewer commissioners in the town.
They are, I saw that too, which was,
Do they have a DPW? Is that why?
I don't know.
I believe they do. I know they have an engineering department, so
Yeah.
I'm sure they have I'm pretty sure they have a DPW.
Right.
So in the event of a DPW, there is still a water and sewer commission?
There's not usually a separate, it's usually either the board of selectmen or your town council or someone else that's,
Okay, they act as the commission.
yeah.
Not always. If you have a DPW,
You don't usually have an elected board of, it's usually someone else.
Maybe
who-
not
or,
elected,
Like
but-
the board of selectmen choose
yeah.
people, they can choose people they can be,
with the expertise, yeah.
right?
That, on the town manager having to obtain residency within the first year, I have curiosity to be asked them in Stoughton during some of their hiring process of the town managers, if that ever came up. That would just be, I understand the rationale behind it, on the surface, I like it, the ability, but I also wondering if it restricted them on how many applicants they've got with
Yeah.
that hanging over, or was it something that they could easily just have the selectmen vote on, saying that they didn't have to, because they do have a provision in there that the selectmen can vote on it, but I'm just wondering if it ever came up that it made it an issue of saying, we probably shouldn't have put that in there.
Yeah, I know for other towns, like, there's been a lot of change away from that.
I was just gonna say, I think people
In
have
Mansfield, they just
gotten
changed
away
away
from
from that.
Listen, I just think it's you're open, I mean, if you want, obviously the town manager in some of these towns, and even in our towns, such a high-profile job, and it takes a lot to be able to run a town, to have the education experience needed to do that. I think that asking somebody to uproot their entire lives to take the job here,
I never saw a town manager living in the same town.
Yeah.
Just not gonna, you're gonna be real lucky to find someone that's gonna move into town.
You're really limiting your.
Well, so I mean, if
your
you're
options.
asking, if you're willing to pay the money, you're gonna ask for the most high qualified candidates. Because I understand that, it's a reasonable question, I know it's come up before, is, well, you don't even live in town, the comments that are made, well, I understand that, but you're asking somebody to do that job, that's a high profile job, and it takes a lot of education and experience. We ask our town manager before we even appoint him to have a high level of education, to have experience in running a town. I wonder if my curiosity more if anything is if Stoughton has ever come across that and said it's limited us on who we've gotten to actually come in and take the job.
Or has there been any conflicts, because it's, now like you have a town manager that say lives on the reservoir and just spends, millions of dollars to clean up something there, and where's the conflict in terms of how does this
Suggestion
come
of
up as a-
impropriety.
Yeah.
Completely unrelated, I just take issue with the pronoun.
With the what?
The pronoun. Throughout the whole thing, it's he.
1972.
Yeah. No, they've updated it
82.
quite a few times since. I'm surprised nobody's jumped on that yet, but that's neither here nor there. Okay.
Yeah, they appoint the town clerk.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. And the chief of police.
They do things quite a bit differently, I
They
noticed.
have a lot more power. I think.
Yeah.
It seems like a very strong Board of Selectmen,
Yeah.
compared to some of the others we've looked at.
Yeah, even like right down to the town accountant, actually.
Yeah.
Right?
If we could talk about under, looks like duties, the last one, J. And this would address potentially one of the things that I think it was Mary had mentioned. And I think this is for discussion. I don't know whether it is the right solution. The very last sentence. So basically states that the Board of Selectmen can make a investigation, they can subpoena anybody, administer oath, take testimony, require evidence, and it goes on to state, any person who fails or refuses to obey a lawful order issued in the exercise of these powers by the selectmen is guilty of a misdemeanor, punishable by a fine of not more than $500. I don't know how enforceable it is, but it addresses Mary's comment in that there was really nothing they could do to compel people to come before them when requested.
But is that the same? I mean, she's talking about just coming to their meetings, right?
Well, it says, has a right to make an investigation, authorize the town manager to investigate operations of the town, the conduct of any town department, office. It seems to fall within that purview, but
Sandy, are you suggesting that Mary's comments were maybe less extreme situations
Yeah, I don't
than
think
that?
she was talking about misdemeanors. I think she was just saying, I would like updates
Yeah,
from
sometimes
the
we want to
board.
talk to the planning board. or
Right.
whatever,
Yeah.
Right. And it's interesting because, well, I guess it's a different topic. I just don't understand why they can't compel the superintendent, even though the board is elected, the superintendent is hired by the board, by the town administrator, town manager. So the whole relationship of the water sewer commission that we have right now, I don't,
it's dysfunctional.
no, I don't think it's any different than anything else, than any other board.
Okay.
But again, that's kind of,
I think the problem with the Water Sewer Commission is what's going on in town. I mean,
right, but they don't have any more, I mean, they don't have any more power than planning board or zoning board or conservation. They don't hire their director.
I think that, in my opinion, why this is such a hot topic in this town, and while it's not a hot topic in a different town that may have the exact same way they elect and/or appoint a water commission is what the issues we have in this town. I mean, people are obviously looking for blame.
Right.
And when you blame somebody for the town for water, the instant thing comes back to, well, it's not my fault, it's somebody else's fault. I'm not saying that's happening, but it just naturally what occurs is well, you're not allowed the commission to be appointed by selectmen and/or town manager, so it must lie in that we're electing the wrong people. I mean, I think let's be honest, if we had clear water, where there was no issues, and the only time we ever had a problem was when they were flushing hydrants in the spring, do we think that the comments on any of these surveys would have anything to do with the water sewer? People wouldn't even know what the Water Sewer Commission was. I think that they're hearing this and they're saying, well, it must be their fault. Whether it is or isn't, I don't know, because I don't know enough about water. I'm just saying that if it is, and that's what needs to be changed to help the situation, what we're in, then we need to look at it.
Yeah, I have to wonder what happened in the town that made them
Yeah.
institute a $500 fine for, again, it goes back to your comment, right, David, that there's always, it seems like there's a backstory there.
Yeah.
To why you put such strong language.
It is the
in.
first one that we've seen where there's ever been some teeth to ignoring a request from the,
Yeah, I'm sure there's a history there.
yeah.
You know what else about the water and sewer? A lot of people, they're really upset about the water, and their water bill keeps going up. And if they don't pay their water bill, they get in trouble because they put a lien on their house. And that's always like, I don't understand how, where this law comes into effect. Is it a law that the water and sewer made? I'm not sure how that works. I've always wondered, but if you're paying for something that doesn't work,
Yep.
you know, is there anything in the charter that we can change, like for the water and sewer? Or if we did have them appointed, the selectmen would be in charge of them now? Because right now, no one's in charge of them. Right now, they're elected, they can do, basically, they got all the power. I just, it's, and I'm not saying it's their fault we got brown water, but
Yep.
I know people are frustrated because the water rates go up, and they
Yeah.
got brown water still. And, you know, is there anything in the charter we could put in there, you know, I don't know, if we can change something, or?
I think that's definitely something we have to look at,
And-
right? I mean,
Yeah.
Well, my curiosity would be is this, I mean, like, okay, so we have these survey responses, we have everybody coming in here saying the same thing about it, okay? So they're saying, let's switch the water sewer to an appointed board instead of an elected. But my question is what changes?
Yeah, does it
So,
even solve
does
the
it
problem?
actually help solve some of the problems that people are in? If the answer is yes to that, and someone can explain to me why this would be the thing, because in my opinion, you're only going to appoint people that are willing to actually do the job. I mean, if you have a great person in town that you think should be on there, that doesn't mean they're gonna take the job. I mean, they might say, I'm all set with that, you know what I mean? So, my question is, you're not, as of right now, they're not getting paid. There's really no, benefit to them taking this position, besides being yelled at every day when either rates go up and/or water's brown. So my question is, what is going to change it? Is it that now that they're overseen by the town manager and/or selectmen, however you want to do it, well, that's fine, but you're still not getting better water. So now you just have a committee that's being questioned or called into meetings because you appointed them. Where if I can just picture myself being, if I was one of those people that knew a lot about water and I would say, yeah, okay, I'll be appointed to it. Why am I going to listen to this? I've told you what you needed to do. It's either not being done or it's going to take some time. There's nothing else I can tell you. I just want to know what the answer is. Just making that one little switch in the chart doesn't seem like a lot to me, to be able to say to people, well, now you're going to see,
Accountability of somebody.
yeah, you're going to see accountability and you're going to see unbelievable water because we're just going to stop firing people. Like, fire people all you want, people just aren't going to take the job or take the responsibility on. I mean, maybe that's a question we have when we, do a little bit more of the water thing, and we start speaking to who's in charge of water, but I still just don't see how making a small change like that in the charter is gonna, I think if you got water problems, you're gonna have water problems until it gets fixed.
All right.
Yep.
Any comments under town manager? How about school committee?
So just back on the town manager.
Sure.
I think we heard tonight something about disjointed purchasing processes. Point H here is the town manager is to purchase all supplies for a department in town. So it looks like they've at least tried to centralize that here.
We have that too.
We have
They
that
do?
too,
Yeah.
All right.
No, it's okay.
We in school committee?
School committee.
Yeah, I was gonna mention, I meant to mention for selectmen also, but I don't think they are paid, but they could be, it does talk about compensation. If it's allowed either under state law or if it's appropriated within the budget. So it's always interesting, a lot of these positions are actually, at least in theory.
There are definitely towns that pay there.
Yeah. I Googled it really quickly,
Yeah.
Stoughton, and I couldn't find what anyone was being paid. Actually, I looked at the budget quickly, actually, I'll take that back. And like the selectmen were not being paid. There's nothing on the salary line for executives.
If you look in the annual report, it actually has anybody that's drawn a salary from the town.
That was a good idea, yeah,
They're listed there.
yeah. Yeah, I went to the budget, I was just looking at like the
Yeah.
salary line.
I think they get reimbursed for there's,
Sure.
I want to say under the Board of Selectmen, it was nothing. It was probably reimbursed for expenses of some kind.
Yeah. No, they had like a admin
Yep.
salaries. We didn't have anything on an executive line, so.
There are definitely towns that do that, and there's one town my sister lives in that they just changed away from, they used to get benefits.
Oh, wow.
Because once they're on the salary scale, then they're eligible for benefits. So they took that, they just finally took that out, but for years, you could be like on the Board of Selectmen, Board of Sewer Commission, whatever, and you would get town benefits.
Not a bad gig.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does encourage people who maybe are doing lonely.
At the school committee, the filling vacancies, I thought was interesting. Because why would they not just have a fill in for the next election?
Why wouldn't they have what?
So when we have, if we had somebody quit midway on the school committee, would we appoint someone to fill that spot, or would we wait until the next election, or hold a special election? Because they have a joint meeting of the selectmen and school committee to fill a vacancy, which I don't think we
I don't
do
even
that.
know if it even says that.
I don't remember how it was addressed in ours.
We do that for other boards.
We do, but we don't do it for board of selectmen, and I didn't think we did it for our school committee either.
No, it
But I don't know that.
It doesn't say anything about a vacancy or a school committee.
In ours, you mean?
In ours, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we address it, so I don't know how that's.
Does it fall like under a later article where it just addresses vacancies in general?
I don't think so.
We tend to think not only because the school committees tend to be treated a little separately. than
Yeah.
Right,
so.
right. And then, was I missing, on the Stoughton charter, under the school committee, I didn't see a mention of the superintendent. Am I missing a page? Am I missing something?
Yeah, I don't remember them being addressed.
And I couldn't find it, I was looking to see where else I may have read it. But I didn't see it under the school committee article. I didn't mention it in the superintendent. I thought it was there.
I'm wondering if it's colored under this, what does it say?
You're saying it doesn't say that they're even gonna appoint the superintendent, right?
I'm wondering if it just covered, I'm wondering if it's covered under this powers and duties, where it says the school committee shall have all the powers and duties school committees may have under the Constitution and general laws of the Commonwealth, which are not specifically assigned to some other office by this charter. So I wonder if that covers that appointment of it, because
It's in their
it's,
bylaws.
well, and it could
I
be,
know
State law.
state law is appointed
governs some,
superintendent,
yeah,
so
Some of the school committee duties, so that might be.
I'm wondering if those laws are in there, and that
Yeah.
is,
That makes sense.
you know, an ex facto cover of the whole thing, you know what I mean?
I'm just surprised it doesn't even mention it,
I know.
like no mention of it even.
Well,
Oh,
I'm
it's
just surprised,
position.
I'm
Oh,
just
it's
surprised it
hired?
doesn't even
Yeah, right.
mention, well, I'm just surprised it doesn't even mention the general law of where it's covered under, like,
Or-
if the general law does say the school committee can appoint the, you know, superintendent, you wouldn't at least reference the law or saying where you can find that?
Right, because it's a pretty big position, to
Yeah.
leave it out and just say it's in
Absolutely.
the Massachusetts state law is,
I mean, especially, if I mean, we're at 70% of the budget, I mean, I don't know what
Correct.
each town is, but I'm sure it's pretty close at this point.
correct. I was just wondering if they had an appointment process other than the school committee, other than just the school committee, where maybe, you know, because when our superintendent was here, I asked him about the process, and he said he was interviewed by the school committee, selectmen, and he couldn't quite pinpoint, I don't remember who else, but I was wondering if there was another committee, or anywhere else in here that mentioned it, but I didn't see it. I just think it's a big, big position to omit.
Anything else within school? Representative town meeting. It's like I had said, they have 8 precincts, 21 reps from each precinct, 168 representatives total. Of the voting population, it's 0.8%. Did anybody else find it odd, and maybe we do it this way and I just didn't notice, that the annual town meeting warrant closes on December 31st? For petitioned and budget articles? Seems somewhat unreasonable.
Where are you looking?
Under representative town meeting, that first paragraph, annual town meeting warrant shall close to petitioned and budget articles on December 31st of the year previous to the annual town meeting. The warrant is open to the Board of Selectmen until the first Tuesday in February. That's a lot of advance warning.
I think
Yeah.
that's maybe what, a little bit like what Keith was talking about. We spent all this time doing the budget and getting, getting each budget in from the department head, giving them a certain amount of time to close it. And then after that, we're not gonna keep having discussions on it and then go to a town meeting and then start voting on individual little things on each budget. I mean, obviously, they do it a little bit different. They have a
Yeah.
representative town meeting, but we're gonna close it at some point. You got a couple months, and then, well, you only got a couple more weeks because the warrant shall remain open to the Board of Selectmen. So the Board of Selectmen could still put something on the article. Then you have from February until May.
But even petitioned articles, so if a member of the public wanted to petition a warrant,
I just think it's
they've got to
way
get it in 4 months in advance.
I just think it's a way to close because of the meetings would probably, I don't know what they do for a FinCom. I mean, they have an elected FinCom, well, I mean, a appointed FinCom from the moderator, but if they're having these discussions and all these meetings, now the meetings stop at some point, and now we're gonna start bringing them up again in February or in March. That's what I think they're probably trying to avoid.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think you're right, because even the special town meeting, which I thought that might be the out, because I think our selectmen tend to do that.
Well, I mean, they called one,
They call a special town meeting, and then they can make a change, I think, pretty much up to the very end, I believe.
I just think it avoids now having, like, just for instance, if they didn't do this, or if they don't have some type of cap on it, let's say the FinCom meets, the budget all lines up where they want, now they're gonna bring it to representative town meeting. But now come March, citizens or just the general public come in and start petitioning. What are you gonna do, call back in the FinCom to try to figure out what you're gonna put on the article? I think at some point you gotta say, it's done, the selectmen, and I guess the selectmen could still be petitioned by the member of the public. So for instance, if someone comes up with a great idea, or comes up with an actual warrant that makes sense, the selectmen could then put it back into, because they have until the first Tuesday in February. Then it basically gives the representative town meeting about 2 months, say, a little more than 2 months, 2.5 months to basically gather their information before they make their vote.
And if I'm reading correctly in the next paragraph, and it is a little confusing, but if I'm reading in the next paragraph, it says, inhabitants of the town of Stoughton may petition to have an article placed for consideration by town meeting representatives at the special town meeting. Petition form for this purpose must contain at least 100 signatures. So between that time frame,
You still have an
it's-
avenue.
they still have the opportunity, as I'm reading it, between that time frame, they still have the opportunity to put an article.
Yeah, but that's in regards to special town meeting, not annual town meeting.
But it says, this is where I get a little confusing, because it says they have to have the special town meeting. What, give me a second.
Yeah, they're required to have one by the petition of inhabitants of the town containing 200 signatures.
But it says the warrant shall remain open to the board until the first Tuesday in February. The Board of Selectmen may call a special town meeting at any time. The warrant for the special town meetings will remain open for at least 7 days from the call of that meeting, of the meeting.
But that's only for a special town meeting. So if they call the special
Yes.
town meeting,
That's in case somebody else wanted to add something into the special town meeting.
I don't, maybe, again, this would be a question for Stowed, but I don't understand if that's the case, why you wouldn't even think about doing that in general for a regular town meeting. So for instance, if you actually went through, did your homework, petitioned the representative town meeting, you've got 100 signatures, you could actually submit a change to the article actually during the meeting. Because I think what it avoids, I think what, again, just by reading this paragraph, I think what they're trying to avoid is someone coming up in a town meeting at last minute, and I understand we're different, we have an open town meeting, they either come up and just say, well, I want to take money from here and put it over here. After we've already done all this work and all this legwork and meetings on where the budget's gonna fall, and it's all gonna be zeroed out, and I think that's what you're trying to avoid. Which they're different, I mean, they have a representative town meeting, they're gonna be given, they're gonna be called for a meeting, representative of the town's gonna have to go in there and vote on what the budget says.
All right, let's move on.
Yeah.
Anything under town moderator?
I just thought it was interesting that it's only 1 year term,
Yeah.
so every year you gotta run.
I feel like we've seen that before though, too, haven't we? In a previous,
You can't vote on articles either.
in a previous charter.
I think so.
This is the tie.
Unless it's a tie.
Looks like
Could be a
he can vote if
tie,
it's gonna-
right.
his vote's gonna matter. He can vote, or she.
Yeah, I think ours is the same way.
Vice president.
Basically, if it
Oh,
comes down to
exactly.
one vote. he's
Yeah.
elected,
Right.
So,
Right.
It only matters if it matters.
Correct. That's exactly what it is.
All right, are we still under? Oh, we're still under representative town meeting. I thought we were under moderator. Okay. Vacancies, elections.
The, how many precincts did you mention?
8.
So they have 8 precincts.
21 reps from 8 precincts.
That seems like a lot less than some of the other towns.
The other one was 270, right?
Yeah.
I looked
Well,
at
that was
the,
Plymouth, wasn't it? It's a lot
Dell-
bigger of
oh,
a town.
Yeah, maybe even Dedham I thought had a much, I thought had.
Probably fill this one.
What's this population of Stoughton? It's
It's what we're doing right now.
pretty small, right?
28,000.
no, they're bigger. 26.9.
So Plymouth is probably, what, double that, maybe?
Yeah, probably. For some reason I thought I saw it in Dedham's. I thought Dedham's.
The percentages, when they did have representative town meeting, they varied quite a bit from what I saw.
Yeah.
All right.
I just like the idea of the smaller.
Smaller number of people.
Yeah, for people, no personal planning, but otherwise you probably end up appointing a lot of people because no one runs.
Right.
I thought it was interesting, page 12, C7-14, town meeting standing committees.
Just before we get to the floor, that's
Yeah.
C7-11, you have this organizational town meeting. It's basically held preceding the annual town meeting for the purpose of just the representatives, and they go in and, I like how they basically have all this done before the actual even meeting happens. So, for instance, they elect the chairman and the clerks of each precinct delegation, and they also, the election of the deputy town moderator set forth in the charter. And they basically iron out all the rules before they even have the actual representative annual town meeting.
The representative town meetings members actually make up a large portion of all of these defined as standing committees, of which FinCom and ZBA are 2. And they're very large committees, so their FinCom is 17 members, 9 of which are appointed, and 8 are a delegation of the representative town meeting. One thing I did have a question on, and I don't know whether anybody read it the same way I did, and maybe I'm just not understanding it. Under C7-14, still within B, but on page 13, that second paragraph, talks about the FinCom making a report, and it goes on for quite a bit, but one of the things it states within it, about halfway through that paragraph, the report shall state the total amount of appropriations recommended by it on the entire warrant and the approximate tax rate based on such recommendations. Am I reading that right, that FinCom is recommending the tax rate?
Or they just need to state the tax rate? If it's, is the
Well, maybe
tax
if they
rate
make-
a formula?
Well, maybe if they're making a recommendation it's going to increase, they need to
State what the
explain what the tax
is.
rate's gonna be, or what the effect on the tax rate's gonna be.
Only budget.
Yeah, that's how I read it, right? Here's the total that we want to spend next year, and here's what the tax rate has to be to support that.
Okay.
Based on all recommendations.
Yeah, for information
Yeah,
purposes.
that's how I read it.
All right. We have a few other standing committees that were unusual, ones we hadn't seen yet.
Even just going back to your investigations call out earlier for the Board of Selectmen, I think the paragraph below the one you were just talking about, Laura.
Yep.
The committee shall have the authority of any time to investigate the books, accounts, and management of any department of the town. The and management part is interesting.
I think that number 3, so at the end of C7-14, it has subsection number 3 there. It says, "A committee on municipal operations, which shall study the report of articles that affect functions performed by office departments, town government." I think that's a little bit of what Keith was talking about before. So they have, the committee shall consist of town meeting representatives, serves 1-year terms. 1 member is appointed by the moderator, and 1 member shall be appointed by the chairman of each precinct. So they have 9 members for basically doing exactly what you were talking about before.
Right.
So if somebody were to go out and say, this is why we need, X machine or X thing, that they would be responsible for that standing committee to report back to their representative town meeting to say, this is why. Instead of dragging 100 and whatever, 21 times, whatever that ends up to being, 100 and some odd people down to, for example, the highway bond, you have this committee go back and report to them, and they'll say, yeah, they do need this, so they don't need this. That's how I read that anyway. I mean, municipal operations, I don't think it can be any clearer.
What was the committee Keith had mentioned? It was Capital Improvements Committee?
He said it was a committee that worked with the capital improvements, not the capital improvements.
This is the FinCom committee they're talking about right here, right? Or the FinCom.
Well, it's just-
investigation.
It's the standing committees.
Yeah, it's of which that happens to be one of them. There's 4
Yeah,
standing
there's
committees.
one, there's the Committee on Finance and
Oh, I
Taxation.
see. Oh, I
Number
see.
2 is the Committee on Municipal Regulations. 3 is that one I just spoke about. And the 4th one is the Committee on Intergovernmental Relations.
Gotcha.
And I would take it, they report directly back to the representative town meetings that are gonna end up voting on these type of
Yeah.
budgetary things. So for instance, if there was a budgetary item in there for instance, what Keith was talking about earlier, a backhoe, they can get a direct report from that committee instead of dragging, 100 some odd representatives down to investigate it on their own.
Well, the biggest thing about that is, I might need a machine, but the police might need a cruiser more than I do, so they can see it and they can explain why we're not.
And triage
Getting
things, really.
Yeah.
But I found that, I find the section, the C714, very confusing. The town meeting standing committees, they're not talking about the town meeting representatives, correct? They're talking about these 1, 2, 3, 4.
They're subcommittees of-
These are these 4 subcommittees.
That
Yeah.
report
they
back to the
report-
RTM.
Yeah.
So they are the only committees that report back to the RTM, and then other departments report to them.
But they are town meeting representatives, so you're just taking all your RTM members and sort of putting them into different subcommittees,
Okay.
right, sort of giving
I
them.
mean, it's like the House of Representatives. I mean, like, you just forming other subcommittees within these people. That
Within
you're part of
these,
this, you're part of Ways and Means, you're part of, secure, I see this, some of them being problems with that, because then you're directly voting, those same people that are in these subcommittees, and then turning around voting directly on things that they're members of.
Yeah, but that's how anybody.
should be.
No, I mean, I agree, I just, I mean,
They still have to convince a lot of people, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
I just think it's a way that, something that maybe we don't do enough of, is that you have some, I know it's to a fine line of appointing too many committees and too many things to report on, but sometimes when you need an exact hands-on thing of what's actually going on, the only way to do it is to have people actually go out and say, does this actually need to happen? And maybe they're not even deciding it, they're just coming back and letting people know.
Well, similar to what Dr. Bayetta was talking about with taking the finance committee, right, and breaking them up into subcommittees and making them sort of experts on each of the areas that they then report back to. Just more accountability for each of those.
I think that's too, I mean, that's why we probably need to look at how if the towns do have appointed, finance committee members, how do they appoint them? Are they doing it like we're doing it with just a moderator appointing it, or are we having
Right.
multiple, 3 members are appointed by this committee, 3 members, so when that person retires, that's the appointment they have. So you have a broad base of it.
Anything else on the standing committees? Elections?
I think it's nice that they put in there, or you're talking about section 8, right?
Yeah.
I think it's nice they put in there about the charter commissions, so, 8.6. We talked about that with our charter, how there was a big confusion of whether you could be an elected official and also be on the charter commission.
Yep.
The language was interpreted one way, but it wasn't really specified in the charter. This lays it out and sort of takes that as a case. I feel like that should be somewhere specified in our charter, whether we decide, yes, you can, or no, you can't as an elected official, it should be a little more clear.
Yep. Moving on, recall, anything on recall?
I'm sorry, I'm just playing catch up. The randomization of the order of people on the ballots,
Yep.
an interesting item as well.
I think we've seen that once before. Where are we? Recall. They had a lower number, 5% of the signatures of the voting population required.
For C9-4, is there a reason why you'd allow somebody who's being recalled to be reelected back into the position?
I can't
That just happened in
Fall River
Brockton.
problem?
Was it Fall
Fall
River?
River.
Yeah, yeah.
But
That's
I
the
think,
other area.
I think it's to protect the actual person being recalled too, because they could be being recalled for, they could get, would we say this was 5% of voters?
Yep.
I think it's to protect the person being recalled, so they're not being recalled by maybe a special interest group or not a valid reason, or.
But they'd still have to be,
If they're not recalled,
if the recall is voted down, they stay in office.
correct.
If 50% plus 1 say to recall them, they're out, but then they can.
Right, because you
But then
can
they can
win
be
by less
voted
than
back in.
50%.
Right, that's what happened in Fall River.
Right,
So like
exactly.
60% of the people, I think, voted to recall the mayor.
Right.
But then 5 different people ran to succeed him, including
right,
him.
right,
So
right.
he won the highest vote total at like 40%. Right, everybody that voted not to recall him voted to put him back in. So he got recalled and reelected literally on the same
Same
ballot.
day.
Yeah.
This isn't the only charter that does this, though.
Absolutely correct.
We've seen a couple
Yeah,
others.
yeah, that's why I was
It's-
asking
it's
why.
interesting. We've
They go
seen a
back and
couple
forth.
others.
But I think it might be what you were saying. I think it's a protection of saying that if I'm able to go get the numbers to do the recall, is it frivolous? What, if it's not frivolous, then the person shouldn't be,
But it is
Realistic.
But then they
interesting-
wouldn't be
but-
recalled.
but it is
I was gonna
interesting
say,
the
that's just to
percentages,
get
because
them
you
to
need more
vote
than 50%
to recall them.
To get
Yeah.
recalled, that means, you know, the majority don't want you, but then the minority can reelect you.
Spoilers.
they have another thing in there, like a 3-month window limitation. No recall petition shall be filed against an officer within 3 months after he takes office, nor in the case of not subject to a recall election and not removed thereby unless it's 3 months after that election.
Yeah, we've seen that before. They've been longer though, generally 6 months.
And if you can't be appointed to a town office if you've been recalled, as in C98, why should you be able to be elected then?
Yeah.
Does it say that in here?
Yeah, C98.
C98.
No person has been recalled on this.
And I think we have that too, although ours might only be for 1 year.
Oh, that's
We've read
interesting.
one.
It's almost like they're saying two separate things.
Yeah.
They're
Well, if
saying
the
you can be on the
people want the
ballot.
person
You can
again.
be on the ballot.
Well, no, this is an appointment by, like,
This
let's say
has
the Board of
extreme stuff
Selectmen. So
happening.
say if the person recalled wanted to sit on a committee, this is saying they can't sit on that committee. They can't be appointed by the Board of Selectmen.
But they can go back and be on the board of selectmen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then they're being voted in and not
Right.
appointed by their friends
Yeah.
who are still on the Board of Selectmen.
All right, anything within general provisions? This referendum was a little bit different. They can only call for a referendum if it was a vote that appropriated or authorized an expenditure.
We're down to 11 now?
Yeah, C11. Whereas I think the last couple that we've seen with representative town meeting, I don't think there was any limitation on what could be called for a referendum, what vote could be called. And just in general, I thought C12-1 was nice. The fact you have to put it in writing is sad. Anything within general rights of inhabitants, relation to charter bylaws, general provisions, transitional provisions?
Did they have a, charter review?
I saw a bylaw review, I don't remember seeing a charter review. But they've updated it a number of times, so there has to be something,
Well, those could just be things they've done on their own too, right?
maybe.
Yeah, I didn't see anything about having a review or anything.
Yeah, C14-3 is bylaws. Nope. Anything else?
Just a general question, and apologies if you covered this in one of the meetings that I missed, but, so as we're going through these and calling out items that are of interest, do we have a process by which we're trying to understand how effective these various components of charters are? So, I mean, the clearest example, I think, right, so representative town meeting, we see that Stoughton is using it. Are we talking to someone in Stoughton to see, what does that process look like?
So I think Sandy's got a list of towns that we want to talk about or talk to with regards to ones that have been doing it for a while, ones that have just switched to it.
Are we inviting representatives from those towns?
Yeah, we're gonna try and
Well, I'm
speak
hoping
with
we'll have the Form
MMA.
of Government Committee from the MMA, Mass Municipal Association. They have, basically, they send out one of each type, maybe one more than one of each type, to just kind of go through pros and cons. And then from there, so I want to see who is on that first,
Yeah.
before we invite other towns in. We also might want to talk about, I don't know how much, we're in a time crunch, how much do we want to have people come to us versus do we want to start going out to,
Yeah.
sending a couple people to go talk to this person or that
Gotcha.
person,
Okay.
just for time sake.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other business? I don't think I asked for public comment, but I'm gonna assume there was no public comment. The next charter we're gonna review is Watertown. Do we have copies? Oh, they're upstairs, okay.
They're on the copier.
Okay. See Sandy before you leave. Next meeting is September 9th, and again, that's gonna be 3 weeks, so we're gonna be off cycle, and then we'll be every other week from then on. Action items,
I have to send out the survey results.
I saw it. Just popped up.
I will talk to the Council on Aging and Beth and meet up with Denise and find out when's the best time for us to go there.
Okay. I will talk to Chris Sonner and see if we can get access directly to the Facebook Norton Alerts. I'll send a list of the questions that I have right now for employees so that we can use them for brainstorming next week on boards and commissions. I will scan in the handwritten survey. And I will I'm gonna tweak the Norton Alert email.
Janie's gonna put out the agenda.
That
Can we
won't be, at
see
this
if-
point, that won't be for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
since we're
Yep.
not-
What else do we
Can
have?
we see if Lauren could come to an upcoming meeting? I
We
feel like
could-
we've got a lot of questions that would be nice to ask her
Yep.
directly.
Do we want her sooner rather, I don't wanna make people wait while we talk to her, but I also don't wanna make her wait while we're talking to folks. Do we wanna try and find a date that's a little lighter?
I don't think there is gonna be a later.
Can we, not that I wanna
I
add.
mean, the meeting after that is, Bill Gouveia is coming.
The what?
The meeting after that, Bill Gouveia is coming.
Okay.
What if, not that I wanna add meetings, but what if we try to schedule something with her on an off week, that maybe we can meet with her? So one of the weeks, in between the two Mondays, we just schedule a random Monday just to speak to her. We don't gotta do a lot of other business, answer the questions we need to have. It doesn't have to be the long drawn out thing, but get it out of the way, instead of trying to lug her into a meeting when we're talking to other people and trying to figure out what their schedules are.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Do we wanna look at dates now, or do we wanna leave it up to
Just table it for
her?
the next-
It doesn't even have to be a
You wanna
Monday.
See what her
Yeah.
schedule is and then kind of,
Yeah.
not the next meeting.
We're not, committed to Mondays, but,
I think even if everybody can't be there, as long as we get the quorum, so that we can just have the information passed along to her, she can answer the questions, then we at least know where we're going from it.
okay. I'll just ask her to give out a few dates. We'll try and coordinate.
Oh, I also wanted to mention, I threw in two things in Dropbox. One was the list that you had asked me for, and the other was, and it's just sort of a stream of consciousness. It's not like a great format, but the history of charter attempts. So if you're looking for, how often did we try to change water sewer from elected to appointed, or, town clerk, those changes are all sort of documented in there.
Thank you.
Great.
With interesting articles, click on the links, there's some really good articles. Pretty entertaining.
Did we hit all the action items?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. Any other topics anybody wants to discuss? About the next meeting, I will take a motion to adjourn.
Moved.
Second.
Adjourned.
Hi, everybody.